Hello and welcome to Weeb. Today I'm gonna start a new series. What if Fem Naruto was raised by hunters? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
A baby girl's screams could be heard over the cracking of thunder on this late October night. She had just entered the world and was put in danger moments later. A man with a single-eye grip and an orange spiral mask said, "Give me the cubie or I shall kill this child." A sword was at the masked man's neck before he realized it. A white-haired man wearing small black circular sunglasses said, "I beg to differ, my friend. You might be quick, but my blade is quicker." The baby was taken from the masked man's hands before he realized it, and the man with the blonde hair wrapped the young girl in a cozy pink blanket before disappearing. The man with the blonde hair said, "Glinda, please keep an eye on Nanami, Kushina is in danger." Glinda exclaimed, What has happened, Minato?" The now-named Minato stated, "Ozpin is battling the masked man as we speak, and we were attacked after Kushina gave birth." Nanami simply gazed up at the woman with the blonde hair who was cooing at her as Glinda took the baby and held her to her chest. Before disappearing, Minato merely grinned and put his hand on his daughter's cheek. Lightning flashes in the sky indicate that the masked man had a red eye as he glared at the man in front of him and said, "You will not stop me." Knowing she must flee, Kushina slowly gets up while Ozpin distracts her assailant. She slips out of bed and heads to the doorway, where she discovers two Anbu bodies that are bleeding. One of them is still alive, the wound on his side isn't too deep, so he will survive. From the corner of the masked man's eye, he saw Kushina moving away. As Minato reappeared, he slipped his hand back into his long cloak sleeve, grabbed a smoke and flash bomb, and threw them at Ozpin. As he ran to Kushina, he blinded both men and dragged her into the forest surrounding the safe house. The masked man said, "You will give me what I want." Then he broke the seal on Kushina's stomach by slamming his hand against it. As the Kyuubi no Kitsune materialized in front of Kushina, she let out a blood-curdling scream and collapsed to the ground. The Kyuubi asked, "What is happening, Kit?" As he turned his head to hear evil laughter and saw his jailer lying on the ground, unconscious, with blood streaming from her mouth. He squinted as he observed the man standing in the rain in front of him. The masked man said, "You will be mine to control, demon." He then took off his mask and looked directly into the Kyuubi's eyes, subduing him with his genjutsu. An explosion occurred at the village's edge before anyone knew what had happened. Kushina was pasted out when Minato and Ozpin ran outside after hearing the screaming. Ozpin ran to battle the demon and said, "Minato, take care of Kushina." Minato hurried to his wife, picked her up carefully, carried her back inside, and laid her back on the bed. "Minato, please keep our daughter safe," a weak Kushina whispered. Before rushing out of the safe house to discover Ozpin engaged in combat with the Kyuubi, Minato said, "I promise Kushina, I promise." Ozpin was holding two Desert Eagles, one in each hand, and the bright blue clips on both of his guns indicated that he had blue dust bullets in them, ready to fire. The Kyuubi was shot between the eyes by him, and when the blue dust bullets burst out of them, the fur turned to ice and spread across the Kyuubi's head, gradually freezing him. Minato appeared when he noticed that the ice was gradually weakening the Kyuubi. Minato swiftly went over a few hand signals before shouting, "Fuden Dai Kameidachi, wind style, great cutting whirlwind." Suddenly, a massive whirlwind struck the Kyuubi, slicing into its side. Yes, what a shocker, the masked coward is Madara Uchiha, who was thought to have died after his battle with the Shodai Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Madara was starting to get upset about this turn of events and was unaware that a huntsman would be present during the birth. With a devilish smile on his lips as a plan came to him, Madara said, "Damn it, I must do something to help that beast." He then disappeared in a whirlpool of flames and reappeared beside Kushina, saying, "My dear, I still need to use you for one more task." He took her by the right arm before disappearing in a whirlpool of flames, and a few minutes later, they appeared in front of Glinda. Madara well extended his hand to the huntress and said, "Good even, I would like to stay and chat further, but I am in need of a new dance partner and I must take that child from you, so if you would please give it to me." Glinda said, her voice cold, "Not a chance in hell, you freak." Madara pulled Kushina up by her hair and said, "Then tonight before that infant's eyes she shall lose her mother." Kushina was too weak to fight back after giving birth and losing the Kyuubi. Glinda's eyes widened and then squinted. "Bastard." Madara trapped Glinda in a genjustice before she could intervene, and he fell to the ground, saying, "Stupid creature." He then went to the sleeping infant, picked her up, and took Kushina by the hair again before disappearing back onto the battlefield. Madara appeared with Kushina at his feet in a clearing on the outskirts of the village. The Kyuubi was less than 500 yards away, and in a flash of lightning, a single red eye could be seen swirling behind the orange mask. They heard a baby's cries and a woman's screams carried by the wind after the sounds of thunder and rain had subsided. Ozpin stopped in the middle of his attack to look where Minato's eyes lay. His body shook and anger raced through him, but fear also struck him as he saw the masked man standing on a tree with Minato's wife and daughter. He was gritting his teeth and his killer intent had skyrocketed to insane proportions. "Glinda," he murmured. Before anyone realized what had happened, Ozpin was facing the enemy when a left hook unexpectedly struck the masked man in the face, making. Fortunately, Kushina caught her daughter after he dropped the baby. "Kushina, get away quick," Ozpin exclaimed, his eyes changing from their usual warm honey brown to a blazing silver so bright you would think flames locked his eye in fury. With the Kyuubi on the ground, its eye flickering from nothingness to pain, Kushina scurried to her feet and ran to Minato. With tears in his eyes, Minato rushed to Kushina's side and embraced her, saying, "I'm so sorry, I failed you this night, but I must forsake our daughter." "Minato, no, I can hold him," Kushina said, taking deep, troubled breaths. Seeing that his beloved would stop at nothing to keep their daughter from living the life of a Jinchuriki, Minato said, "Kushina, you know we could always send her with Ozpin and Glinda, they can raise her and give her a happy life, as a huntress." The masked man had killed the doctor, so Kushina's fate was sealed. Kushina looked up at him, studied his face, and became pale when she realized what seal he was going to use. She also knew he wouldn't survive because she was losing too much blood from giving birth. Kushina nodded, focused her chakra, and golden red chains shot from her body and swiftly wrapped around the Kyuubi. After Kushina gave her daughter one last kiss on the forehead, Minato stood behind her and performed the hand signals to summon Shinigami, the death god. A few minutes later, a demon-like creature dressed in white robes with a Tonto blade in its mouth and a stream of beads in its hands appeared before them. "Who summons me?" Minato asked the god of death, taking a deep breath before responding, "I summon you, Shinigami-sama." The death god turned around and mockingly asked, "Foolish human, do you have a death wish?" Minato said, "I summoned you to seal the Kyuubi no Kitsune within this child before me." The Shinigami's eyes flashed blood red as it glanced at the baby, then up at Kyuubi no Kitsune, and finally back at the man. "I shall do it, but it will cost you gravely. Are you willing to pay the ultimate price?" Minato said, "Yes, my soul is yours to do as you see fit." Its eyes flashed again as a hand swung through Minato and seized the feeble Kyuubi, drawing it toward the infant that lay in front of it. "Very well, human." The Kyuubi no Kitsune vanished in a dazzling burst of light, and a double seal emerged on the infant girl's abdomen. With their last remaining chakra, Minato and Kushina sealed a piece of themselves into their daughter as they both collapsed to the ground, blood streaming from their mouths. At that moment, Glinda showed up. The Shinigami pulled Minato's soul from his body and caused him to fall to the ground dead, saying, "It is time, mortal, your soul is forever mine." Glinda hurried over to her pals. Kushina, Minato. In the interim, with Ozpin. Ozpin cracked the masked man's ribs with a spinning roundhouse kick to his left side, but the man's uppercut struck Ozpin's jaw with his right fist, causing him to fall back and slam into a tree. The masked man sneered, "You huntsman, thinking you better than ninjas, you're nothing but a joke." Ozpin got back up, and before the other man knew it, a silver after-vision of Ozpin was in front of him. He backhanded the masked man so forcefully that he flew into the tree he was standing next to. As he prepared to attack once more, Ozpin said, "Bastard, you will pay for this." However, a flash of light stopped Ozpin in the middle of his attack, causing Kitsune to disappear and Minato to fall to the ground. A blonde woman then ran towards the couple and baby. The man in the mask yelled, "Damn it," and disappeared into a black hole. Ozpin ran to his friends while maintaining his bulk. "Glinda, you and Ozpin take Nanami and raise her as your own. Keep her safe, please, I beg of you, I'm not long for this world." Kushina said while coughing up blood, "Please go to our home and grab all the scrolls we showed you last night and take them for Nanami. It is her birthright, I don't want those bastards in the council to take them." Ozpin touched Glinda and said, "Yes, Kushina, we will take her and raise her as our own." She handed her daughter to Glinda, who could see the light in her eyes dim as her soul departed, and gave her a final kiss with a sorrowful smile. Glinda sobbed for her deceased friend as she held her daughter and gave her a forehead kiss. Ozpin said, quick, get her out of here, they're coming. Glinda gave a nod and took off running. Following her departure, Jiraiya and Sarutobi showed up with a number of Anbu. They had a horrified and shocked expression on their faces. No, I was a damn fool for taking too long getting back. Jiraiya sobbed as he collapsed to his knees. With a dejected expression on his face, Ozpin put his hand on the elderly man's shoulder before. Jiraiya asked, where is their child? As she turned to face him. I'm sorry, the baby was lost in the attack, I was too late to save her, Ozpin said, averting his gaze from Jiraiya to the burning structure. Jiraiya sobbed deeply as he slammed his fist to the ground. Ozpin felt bad about lying to the man, but he had to respect his two friends' wishes because if he told him she lived, her life would be hell. Sarutobi said, I am sorry Jiraiya. Minato and Kushina's bodies were picked up by two Anbus and transported to the hospital before being buried. Glinda and I will be leaving in the morning, she doesn't have the heart to stay. Ozpin replied. Sarutobi answered, I understand. After getting back to his feet, Jiraiya grabbed a bottle of sake from his bag and started to drink, but then. This is not what your student would want you to do, Jiraiya. Minato saw you as a father figure in his life. Do you really want to let him down? Ozpin said, snatching the bottle from the man and smashing it on the ground. With tears streaming down his cheeks, Jiraiya said, no, he wouldn't wish to see me like this, but damn it all to hell, it's painful. Why should I live and my students die? Why do the ones I love and care for die? Jiraiya looked down at the ground, at the broken bottle, and back up at the sky. It had started to rain again. Maybe fate might hold a surprise for you in the future, said Ozpin. Everyone disappeared after that. Since it was uncertain whether Nanami would ever require it, Glinda had sealed away everything Kushina had instructed her to take, including Minato and Kushina's marriage certificate. When Ozpin and Glinda arrived at the gates at 4 in the morning, the sleeping infant they were responsible for raising was concealed beneath Glinda's oversized cloak. It would be a long time before she would see her home again. Time does fly when you're having fun, but this isn't what I had in mind for fun. Nanami sighed, avoiding contact with the steel tip of the Neurona's tail by sidestepping. The Neurona growled, Ratchet girl, I wasn't bothering anyone. Really now? Then why are the villages near your cave claiming you have taken young girls from their homes in the middle of the night? I even have reports that you took one boy as well. Nanami replied. It swung its tail at Nanami again. She managed to avoid the blow, but she failed to notice the creature's growing fingernails. Before she knew it, the claws had sliced across her right arm, causing blood to flow down it. Damn it, just a few inches deeper and she would have cut the nerves, thought Nanami. The Neurona was more distinctive and appealing than a truly ugly creature. If you didn't know any better, you would think she was wearing a top made of rusty brown and green snake skin. She was a stunning woman with long, wavy black hair, piercing green eyes, ruby red lips, and scales covering her large breasts. Her true, monstrous nature became apparent when you passed that and saw her waist lead to a rusty brown and green snake tail with a steel spar over the tip. Additionally, you would be in serious trouble if she managed to bite you with her long fangs hanging from her mouth because it would numb your body and gradually poison your nervous system until you died. A truly evil smile adorned her ruby lips as venom dripped from her fangs. Foolish girl, your village has grown soft to send a child after me. Mocked Nanami as though the snake woman wasn't that significant, as if she was beyond her abilities as a huntress. What can I say? We have a large demand for huntsmen and huntresses, you just happen to be the oh-so-lucky one to get little old me. Neurona said, silly girl, 13 years ago I killed 2 well-known huntsmen, so you will not be much of a challenge to me. Snake woman sneered at the girl. Yeah well, you must have bored them to death with all this endless talking. Nanami snapped. Her tail snapped directly at Nanami, and her Neurona green eyes glowed softly. With her mind racing, the girl activated her dust crystal dial buckle on her belt to create 2 ice daggers, which she used to block the blow. Nanami swiftly turned the other dagger over and made a cut at the base of the steel spear's position on the tail as it struck the dagger in her left hand. She had made a deep cut, but the blade was insufficiently strong and broke inside the tail close to the bone. The creature let out a spine-tingling cry as its tail flailed in all directions. During this time, Nanami tried to think of her next move by falling back. Now that she was out for her blood, she could no longer play around with the Neurona. If she wasn't careful, it might get it. A tiny smile spread across Nanami's lips as she glanced down at her belt, which was still fixed on the blue crystal. Damn it, you brat, I will make sure I kill you nice and slow, I will make you suffer for what you did to my beautiful tail. Roared the newer Ona. As she ducks behind a more confident Nanami, she closes her eyes and extends her hand. Gradually, an ice longbow forms in her hands. She smiled as she opened her eyes and thought, this might work. However, Nanami heard the tiny cries of children pleading for assistance from the far, darker side of the cave. Nanami whispered, thank Kami they're still alive. The newer Ona, still searching for Nanami, hissed, have you already given up my little huntress? At last, she found her as an ice arrow materialized, the braver stepped out from behind and drew back the longbow, saying, I'll never give up, you filthy monster. Its mouth opened in laughter, and she hissed, haha, you will be one of my favorite toys my sweet. Nanami released the arrow and inhaled deeply. The newer Ona's eyes widened as she swung up her tail again, using it as a shield against the attack, and it formed multiple other arrows as it flew through the air. She screamed in agony as 2 of the 3 arrows struck her tail and the third struck her shoulder. As a result of this diversion, Nanami dropped her longbow and covered her black-gloved hands with ice. Nanami ran up to the newer Ona as she was removing the arrow from her shoulder. She leapt quickly on top of her and pushed the arrow deeper into newer Ona's shoulder by driving her feet first. The young huntress of the newer Ona pushed her violently as her cries of agony became louder. Nanami quickly twisted as she was falling back to the ground, landing on her hands and pushing herself back into the air. She then performed another flip, landing on her feet a few feet in front of the newer Ona, but she was unaware that she was still within reach of its tail. That tail then swept across the cave floor, striking Nanami in the right side at that precise moment. She flew into the cave wall due to the force of the blow. As she withdrew the arrow from her shoulder, the newer Ona hissed, I must admit, you're pretty good, the only person who has ever hurt me in a long time. Nanami lifted her left hand to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth and smiled as she picked herself up off the ground. I'm Blade, here I was worried I was getting rusty, said Nanami. The newer Ona said, it's just a shame I have to kill you, I did enjoy playing with you. As she brushed herself clean, Nanami thought, come on, I need to think of something, quick. Then she had a thought when she felt tiny rocks on her thigh. Around her, she started to make jagged little ice tacks on the floor. She then twisted the arrow on her belt to silver white once the ground had turned a gentle blue. A slight breeze began to rise slowly. As the newer Ona started to slither toward the young girl, the breeze grew stronger and gradually started to twist around her. You might have thought you saw death flash in front of her green eyes if you had looked closely. As the wind increased, Nanami ran in the direction of the creature, creating a small twister around her body. She leapt into the air and kicked the newer Ona in the face, which was all it took for the twister to gain momentum and swallow the newer Ona and ice tacks. She screamed in pain and rage as the ice tacks started slicing its arms and body, but Nanami knew that wouldn't be enough. In order to hit the snake woman in the throat and sever her jugular, she threw her longbow and arrows back into the blue dust, creating a large bolt of sharp ice. Greenish-red blood poured freely from the snake woman's throat as her dying screams could be heard in the cave's darkness. She eventually exhaled her final breath and passed away a few minutes later. Her tail had some life left in it and swung one last time at Nanami, but she formed an ice blade to cut the spear off the tail, and it fell to the ground thrashing. Nanami approached the lifeless body and gazed into the green eyes of the dead to ensure her death. Nanami took a deep breath before approaching the tail and picking it up to use as evidence of her passing. Then, turning around again, she twisted the arrow on her belt toward the red crystal, creating a huge ball of fire that struck the fallen creature and burned its remnants. She left her bag behind when she entered the cave, tail in hand, and said, well, this should be proof enough that it's dead. However, she then hears the cries from the cave becoming more urgent and louder. After putting the tail away, Nanami picked up her bag and moved slowly to her left along the cave's corridor. When she reached the end, she noticed the young kids huddled together. Hey kids, my name is Nanami and your parents sent me to find and save you from the snake lady. Nanami spoke softly. She looked them over as best she could in the dimly lit cave for injuries, but was relieved to find none. The children slowly stood up and rushed at her, their little arms wrapping around her as tears covered their tiny cheeks. Come on, hold hands and we will all get out of here. Nanami replied. They all slowly left the ancient, chilly cave after the young children took each other's hands and Nanami's hand from the person at the front of the line. The full moon was shining on the dark woods outside when Nanami glanced over her shoulder and noticed the youngest child was having trouble keeping up. She paused, approached the little redhead girl, and picked her up. There was a flicker of fear in her green eyes. With a broad smile, Nanami said, "Please don't be afraid, your big sister Nanami will look after you and get you home safely." The young girl nodded her head slowly, tears streaming from her eyes. They slowly made their way back to the main village closest to the cave. The walk took over 3 hours, but Nanami didn't mind. She knew she had scared children with her and they could only move so fast. One of the guards from the main gate yelled, "She's back." As torches caught fire and people rushed to the gates. Families from other nearby villages were also present, waiting for any word on their missing children. Nanami carried 7 kids and one in her arms as she went through the gates. You could see the fear and hope on the village elder's face as he hurried over to the girl and asked, "Are they all alive?" "Yeah, they're all alive and this little one in my arms is very weak," said Nanami. The elder turned away with a sad look in his eyes, but Nanami could see that. Nanami demands, "What? Tell me what's wrong." Her family are all dead. She was one of the first to vanish and the creature killed her parents as they fought to save her, said the elder as he turned to face her. Nanami asked, "Then what will happen to the girl?" "To be honest, maybe a family will take her in or she will be taken to one of the logger hidden villages and left at the orphanage," said the elder. The little girl was crying now after learning the fate of her family and what would become of her. "Doesn't she have any other relatives?" asked Nanami. A wealthy shopkeeper overheard them conversing and said, "Excuse me, miss," as he shook his head and turned away from her. Nanami turned around and looked to where she heard the voice come from to see the shopkeeper, a woman with long, golden brown hair and honey-color eyes walking up to her. "I'll take her." Nanami asked, "You'll take her, miss?" "Yes, I lost my child a year ago when the Neurona first attacked. She killed my husband and my daughter. Since then I have felt empty inside. But maybe this sweet little one will help me fill that lost as I feel her lost," said the shopkeeper. As she handed the young girl to Nanami, a tiny smile appeared on her lips and she said, "Thank you, I hope you both have a long and happy life." After giving the young girl a hug, the store owner said, "Come on, sweetie, let's get you checked out, cleaned up, and fed." The shopkeeper left after the young girl nodded her head and pressed her face against the woman's chest. "Elder, my business is finished here and I must return back to Komedachi village," Nanami replied. With a nod, the man gave the girl her 10,000 yen payment. "Thank you for everything you have done for us," the elder said in gratitude, making her smile softly at the praise. "It was worth it knowing this will never happen again." She took her payment and slipped it into her belt pouch before she took off, leaving the gates behind her as she faded into the darkness down the dirt road. After walking for about 3 hours non-stop, Nanami began to grow tired. "Man, I should get some rest." She looked around and saw a tree with a pretty thick branch to sit on. She looked around to see if there was any yokai or enemy ninjas around. Seeing that she was in the clear, she climbed up the tree and pulled out her sleeping bag and fixed it behind her head like a pillow before she slowly drifted off to La La Land. A few hours later, just before dawn, crying and shouting could be heard. "Shut that damn brat up!" shouted a voice. Hearing all this shouting disturbing her rest. When Nanami slowly opened her left eye, she saw 2 ninja-clad men approaching her and carrying a small black-haired girl over one of the men's shoulders. "Really? Come on, I just wanted to have a peaceful night's sleep before going home. Oh well, the work of a huntress is never done it seems," thought Nanami as she slowly sat up and formed 2 short ice blades. The young girl cried out, "Please let me go." But rather than granting her requests, "Shut up before someone hears you," the man carrying her gave her a hard slap across the face. But then the silence faded away with the sound of a low growl. Looking around, both men thought they might have caught a wild animal's attention. A voice carried by the wind said, "So, when did Kumo start kidnapping again?" The first ninja exclaimed, "Who the hell is there?" A faint blue flash of moonlight reflected off of something up in the treetops, just prior to one of the ice blades flying down and piercing the first ninja's shoulder. Before reaching for the blade and pulling it out, it began to melt in his hands, causing him to bleed and scream in agony. "What the hell?" the ninja cried, desperately attempting to stop the bleeding in his shoulder. At that moment, Nanami leapt down the tree and delivered an axe kick to the second ninja's head, causing him to fall back while the young girl fell off his shoulder and struck her side hard on the nearby tree. She wanted to let out a little cry, but she suppressed it. The second Kumo ninja said, "You little bitch, you're going to pay for that." As Nanami glanced at the two ninjas in front of her, a tiny smile appeared on her lips. "So, you Chunin are Jonin level?" she asked them. They both laughed. "We just ranked Jonin not long ago and the Raikage would love to have a little troublemaker like you for breeding stock." "Nope, I'm no breeder for a pig like your Raikage," Nanami said, tilting her head to the side as her angelic blue eyes gleamed in the moonlight and her long, sun-kissed blonde hair fell to the side. When she insulted their leader in that way, both men snarled at her, but it only made the girl laugh. Nanami exclaimed, "What, I'm a girl, not a kami-forsaking cow." Then, as two more ice blades developed in her hands, she rolled up her baby blue fishnet sleeves. For a split second, both men could have sworn her eyes had solidified like ice. "The one damn time I tell Dad I can handle a simple mission on my own and this happens, damn it, Mercury isn't going to let me live this down if I don't win," Nanami was thinking. When Mercury woke up in the village of Huntsmen, he sneezed and felt a slight chill run down his spine. He stared out the window at the moonlit sky and had a strange feeling about Nanami that he couldn't get rid of. That girl better be okay. Nanami scowled at the two ninjas in front of her back in the nameless forest. "So chubby, you sorry excuses for ninjas think you can handle me," chided Nanami. The first ninja said, "We're more than enough for you girly." When it popped a couple of times, Nanami rolled her neck to the left and charged the two men, spinning around on her heels and slashing at the ninja to her left while the one to her right did a backflip just in time to avoid the blade she swung at him. Then, as the other man fell on his ass, he pulled a kunai and went after her. She blocked the kunai by crossing both ice blades before he could cut her, and he raised his foot and slammed it into her stomach. Nanami growled, "Damn it, that's my favorite shirt." Her baby blue and black shirt had a muddy footprint on it. The ninja was taunted, "Ah, what's wrong princess, someone get her pretty little outfit dirty." With her blue eyes flashing a gentle purple, she glanced back up at him before running and jumping into the air. She did a spin kick while wearing thick ice coats around her black boots, hitting his left cheek to send him flying, slamming his body into another tree, and knocking the wind out of him. "You're going to pay for that." The other ninja scurried to his feet and spit blood out of his mouth before wiping his mouth. Then, as she dodged to his right, he pulled out a short sword and ran at her, swinging it. She didn't move fast enough, and his short sword cut her black tights, barely missing her black and baby blue plaid skirt. She turned the arrow on her belt to the red crystal and yelled, "Damn bastard." Because he had violated her clothing, which infuriated her. Her only thought was retaliation. As Nanami gradually assumed the Crimson Lotus stance, she taunted the second ninja by saying, "Ah, did I make you angry, your highness?" She slowly raised her right hand and flexed her fingers at him in a come and get it gesture, a faint red glow emanating from her hands and legs. The Kumo ninja took the bait and rushed her, believing he could overthrow her with brutal force. However, a smiling Nanami raised her left knee and struck him in the jawline, using the force of the blow to push herself off him and extend her leg to kick him in the shoulder as flames erupted. She then turned on her right heel and saw the other ninja approaching her. With a quick thought, she leaned back and performed a backflip with her hands, kicking the other man in the face with her burning left foot, causing his eyebrows to burn off and knocking him to the ground. As he stood up, the second ninja exclaimed, "What the hell are you?" "Oh me, I'm just a little huntress from the village of Kamadachi, I'm Nanami, Dust Devil, Uzumaki Namikaze," said Nanami. The other fallen ninja exclaimed, "Uzumaki Namikaze. You idiot, we must bring her back alive." The other ninja said, "Why? She's just some random brat from the Kamadachi village." "You idiot, don't you see, this girl is the legacy of the Yellow Flash. The Yellow Flash had many enemies and anyone would pay the right price for this girl." The first ninja replied. Looking at the two ninjas in front of her as if they had both developed second heads, Nanami cocked her head to the left. Nanami thought, "Mama must be a lot more famous than what she lets on." Nanami spun on her left heel and delivered a high spin kick to both men's jaws before they could recover. She needed to end this battle quickly because she wasn't sure how much longer she could fight the Neurona and was still a little weak. Unfortunately, the second ninja had landed wrong against the tree, snapping his neck, and the two men spun around as they were thrown back. The little girl's eyes widened in fear as she saw the ninja's lifeless body lying in front of her. "Please go hide and only come out after I tell you it's safe, okay?" Nanami commanded as she rushed over to the young girl and burned the ropes off of her. The young girl got to her feet, nodded, and sprinted towards some nearby bushes to hide beneath them. As he prepared to attack again, the other ninja yelled, "Kumi! You killed my brother," he cried. "You'll pay for this. They wouldn't mind if you're missing an arm or something." Nanami hit her palm with her fist. "Well buddy, he asked for it. You and your brother are scum kidnapping a little girl in the middle of the night from her family, so just be grateful his death was quick and painless, but, because yours is going to be very painful," she replied. At that threat, he clenched his jaw and made a few hand gestures. "Yumi Numa swamp of the underworld," cried Kumi as a swamp formed beneath Nanami and an unholy stench emanated from it, resembling rotten corpses. "What the hell?" Nanami thought quickly and leapt into the tree beside her. "Screw it, this will be your final resting place," Kumi replied. Would it be enough to freeze that swamp? Nanami asked herself, glaring at him as she considered how much blue dust she had. The sun's rays slowly rise over the hillside in the early morning. However, something golden flashed within its golden rays as it flew through the air. However, before Kumi could strike, a bronze javelin with a red handle passed through his chest, causing his eyes to widen and glaze over as he fell to the dead. The rotten swamp disappeared as the summoner's corpse lay on the chilly ground, blood slowly dripping from his lips. A male voice on her right side said, "Hey Nanami, what trouble did you get yourself into this time?" "John," Nanami inquired. John said, "The one and only." Exactly as the other JNPR team members showed up. Nanami asked, "What are you guys doing here?" As Pyrrha withdrew her javelin from the dead Kumo ninja's chest, she explained, "Well, Ozpin was getting worried since he hadn't heard back from you in a few days and sent us to find you." She ran over to the bush and said, "It's safe to come out now." Nanami rolled her eyes as she looked at the bush where she had instructed the young girl to hide. "Oh man, I almost forgot." After giving Nanami a quick glance, the young girl cautiously emerged from the bush. "Hey Nana, who's the kid?" Nora asked, turning to face Nanami. "Dunno, I was asleep in that tree over there and I heard these two morons yelling and slapping this little girl, so I got up and kicked their asses," said Nanami. "Well Nanami, Pyrrha finish off the last one," Ren replied. As Nanami crossed her arms over her chest and pouted, she said, "Well yeah but I snapped the other guy's neck, so I did like half the job." Okay, John said, trying to hide his laughter. Nanami put the little girl down, ran to the tree where she had been sleeping, climbed up, gathered her belongings, and leapt down to rejoin them. "Well, it looks like I had the pleasure of meeting the dumbass brothers, Kumi and Kumi." "Miss Nanami," the young child said, making. Everyone looked in her direction. "Yes," Nanami asked, her expression bewildered. The young girl said, Can you help me get back home?" With a huge smile, Nora asked, "Hey kid, what's your name?" The look girl grinned as she raised her silver eyes to the young huntress. Neha said, "My name is Neha Tyra. Can you tell us which way to head to find your village Neha?" asked Nanami. Her black hair was flying up and down wildly as she nodded yes. "We just have to head east for about 30 to 40 minutes and we'll be there," Neha replied. Nanami nodded in return and then digs around her bag for 2 olive green scrolls. "Really Nana, you're going to seal them?" questioned John. "Well yeah, these two morons are in the bingo book," said Nanami. "How did you get your hands on a bingo book?" asked Ren. With a playful grin, Nanami gave him a wink and said, "I stole one off of a masked ninja on my way to hunt that Neurona." "Nanami, you know better than that. We don't mess with ninjas if we are not hired to go after," said Pyrrha to Nanami. But she just waved her hand dismissively at Pyrrha. There was no harm done and it would be good to have one of these books. Also it gives us an idea of who we would be facing and what skills they have. Unless you like going into battle blindly, for that's just finna with me, I will not share my findings with you," teased Nanami. Pyrrha became irritated with Nanami's antics, and her cheeks flushed. "Come on, let's get a move on, but first I'm sealing them away," said Nanami. After unrolling both scrolls, she properly sealed them by rolling each body onto one of the scrolls. "It still weirds me out how much you're the only person besides the ninjas that live in those fancy villages that knows how to use those sealing scrolls and how to use chakra," said Pyrrha. Nanami looked up at Pyrrha with a big smile. "I guess I'm just naturally talented." Nora said, "Come on, let's move forward, we're burning daylight here." Everyone gave her a rolling look. Neha asked, "Well, Miss Nora, how are we burning it?" "The sun just came up." I dunno," Nora said. As Nanami lifted Neha and put the young child on her shoulders, everyone just laughed. After about 20 minutes of walking east, they came upon a man and woman, 3 small children, and several adults following them. Their clothes were scorched, and they all appeared to be fleeing from something. When the woman in the front saw them, she rushed over to them and yelled for little Neha. "Mommy!" Neha cried back. The girl ran to her mother's arms after Nanami led her down. The woman grabbed her and held the young girl close to her while her husband, who soon joined them, grinned and gave his wife and daughter hugs while his other kids gathered around and hugged everyone. Nanami grinned as the man said, "Thank you so much for saving our daughter." "It wasn't any trouble, sir. I was just being a good huntress and helping someone who needed help." "May I ask what happened?" Pyrrha asked. The man looked back and then back at the group of children in front of him with a sorrowful expression. "The 2 ninjas that kidnapped our daughter set several fires around our tiny village as we all slept. Everyone you see here are the one who made it out, the rest all died in the fire." The husband shook his head when Nanami clenched her fist and said, "I am sorry for your loss." Her blue eyes went cold. "I have my family, that is all that matters to me at this moment. I am able to rebuild my home elsewhere, but the lives of my children and wife are more important to me right now. Yes, we did lose clansmen and friends, but with us still alive we honor them in the afterlife." The hunters were devastated by this news because of their loss, but Nanami had some ideas. Everyone stared at the blonde girl in disbelief as Nanami asked, "Would you like to return with us back to our village? You do not know us and you invite us to your home?" The husband asked incredulously. Nanami, however, shook her head. "I know there isn't anything evil in your heart and I know my father Ozpin and my mother Glinda would welcome you in her home with open arms." She replied. "We are from the village of Huntsmen, Komedachi." John replied. Neha's mother asked, "My dear girl, are you sure about this?" "Yes, I am. You have no home to return to and we are able to offer you shelter till you are able to build your new home." Nanami replied. After reaching a consensus, the group returned to their village by following the young hunters. After a few hours, the small group of people arrived at an old wooden gate. There, a silver-haired man with his arms folded across his green jacket stood with his silver eyes piercing Nanami. The girl felt uneasy and raised her left arm behind her head to rub her neck, saying, "Hey Dad." Nanami, "What in the world happened? You should have returned 2 days ago," told Ozpin. "Well Dad, there was this Nuorona, about 50 foot tall that lived in a cave that I had to hunt and kill, plus a couple very pissed off bears and 2 wolf packs when I had to invade their home for some shelter," said Nanami. Ozpin exclaimed with relief after hearing this explanation, "Thank God, this will be the last time you go on your own, my dear." "But, Dad," Nanami complained, "you and I both know I need to grow and spread my wings, also not all huntsmen stay in their squads forever." Flames appeared in Ozpin's eyes as he declared, "I don't care, you're my daughter, and if I have to, I will lock you in your room until you get married." Nanami saw her mother at that very moment. "Mom, save me. Dad has gone crazy again saying I'm not leaving my room till I'm married." Glinda put her hand on his shoulder and shook her head. "Ozpin dear, you know you can't do that, she'll just try to burn the house down again." Ozpin smiled and said, "That's only if she has her dust in her belt." Nanami started crying at her father's cruelty. "Professor Ozpin, sir," Pyrrha asked. "Yes, Miss Niklos," Ozpin asked, turning to face Pyrrha. "We brought back survivors from a village attacked by 2 Kumo ninjas. They set fire to the village as they slept and had kidnapped a child, but Nanami had a run-in with the 2 ninjas and she had already dispatched one of them when we arrived and took out the last one." Glinda and Ozpin glanced at Nanami, who smiled sheepishly before turning to face the survivors. The people bowed their heads to Ozpin as he said, "I welcome you to Komedachi, the village of the huntsmen. I'm sure Team JNPR would be happy to show you where you can rest and get some food." Glinda replied. As Glinda addressed the other people, Ozpin's eyes remained fixed on Nanami. Dad, I brought back their bodies in 2 scrolls so I could collect the bounty on them." Nanami replied. "How on Kami's green earth do you know there is a bounty on those 2 ninjas?" asked Ozpin. I stole a bingo book from a masked ninja that was flirting with me," explained Nanami. "Oh dear Kami, that's it, you're never leaving this village again alone." The Ozpin exploded. After a few long minutes, Ozpin finally calmed down and stopped yelling like a crazy person. He pushed his sunglasses and looked worriedly at his daughter, saying, "Nanami, you had me very worried with this last mission. He put his arm around her shoulder and hugged her for a few minutes before releasing her. How about we get some ramen and you tell me about your mission? This proposal made Nanami smile. They both walked down the village streets toward the ramen stand after she said, "Sure thing, Dad. I'll make sure not to take too long next time." Nanami was a tiny shadow of Ozpin when they were standing side by side. She was around 5 feet 10 inches and had a trim, athletic build, but beware, she was incredibly powerful. As she pulled her bag to her side and dug through it, she found a spear that was a good foot long and 2 to 5 inches wide from base to tip. They were talking about how she defeated the Neuron on the way when she remembered something crucial. "Oh Dad, I brought back the spear on her tail as proof she died." Ozpin whistled softly. "It appears you did have your hands full." Nanami tipped her head to her left and looked up at him, asking, "Yeah, I did. What did you think, that I was making it all up?" His lips formed a smirk. "Nah, I just thought you were maybe losing your touch is all." As her father ruffled her hair, Nanami's cheeks turned a gentle rosy color and she puffed them out in humiliation. "Okay, the next time another Neurona shows up, how about you get your old lazy butt out of the office and face it?" she said, glaring at him while batting his hand away. "Fine, I'll just have to show you how it's done then," Nanami said with a cute pout of annoyance on her face, but that only made him laugh at her. "Dad, how do I claim a bounty on the 2 ninjas I have sealed away?" Nanami asked, causing Ozpin's eyes to darken as she rolled her eyes at him before turning into a serious frown. "I'll send the scrolls with your mom the next time she goes to a ninja village," he replied. Unhappy Nanami asked, "But, why can't I do it?" Ozpin turned to face her and sighed, saying, "They wouldn't believe you beat them and would give you a hard time." Nanami complained, "Jerks." However, she agreed with her father's logic, returned the tail to her bag, and took out the bingo book she had taken. After flipping through a few pages, she paused on the book's Chunin level ninjas and exclaimed, "It says here that Kumi is worth 5,000 Ryo and Kumi is worth 7,000 Ryo, but together they are worth 16,000 Ryo." As he took the book out of her hands and looked it over, pointing out the spiral leaf symbol, Ozpin said, "Here, let me see that." Ozpin thought, "Damn it, I wonder who she really ran into." "Hey Dad, does their bounty go up if they are Jonin level?" asked Nanami. "Yes it does, but this book is about a month old, so I guess when your mom goes to a ninja village she might get more for them," Ozpin replied. Nanami said, "But Dad, couldn't I go along with Mom?" As they reached the stand, Ozpin stepped aside and drew back the doorway flaps, allowing Nanami to enter before him. He said gravely, "I'll think about it, maybe when you're older." "Yeah, sure whatever Dad," Nanami remarked mockingly. A man's voice said, "About damn time you're back Nana." "Huh?" Nanami asked, turning her head to look at the source of the voices. To the young girl's surprise, Cinderfall, Emerald Sustre, and Mercury Black, the other members of Team CENM, were seated at a small table and grinning at her. "Mercury, Emerald, and Cinder. What are you guys doing here?" asked Nanami. "Just getting a bite to eat and heard you were back in the village, so we figure we just come here and join you," Mercury replied. "Well you lost the bet Mercury," Emerald said, causing Nanami to blink at her teammates and friends in bewilderment. "What bet?" she inquired. "Well, Mercury here thought you would come back with something broken, but you look fine, so I win the bet, yay." Carrot carrot, Emerald remarked, making fun of Mercury's disappointment over his defeat. After bringing 2 chairs to the table, Ozpin and Nanami took a seat with the others. Nanami remarked cynically, "Geez, I so feel the love here, thanks a lot guys." "What, it was your first solo mission and the last time we all faced a yokai that powerful together, you broke your arm in 2 different places," Mercury replied bluntly. "Well, it only happened because someone didn't want to get his fat head out of his butt," snapped Nanami. Professor Ozpin and Cinder stayed out of it, merely laughing at their altercation. Just then, a shout was heard from the doorway, "Nanami! You're back," shouted Ruby Rose and wanted to go hug her hero, but was held back by the arms of her own sister. As Yang Xiaolong struggled to restrain her sister, she said, "Calm down Ruby, she just came back so give her some space for a bit." Anime tears streamed down Ruby's cheeks as she broke free from her sister's arms and ran over to Nanami, knocking her on the ground and giving her a crushing hug. "Nanami! You're really back. Did you miss me? Did you miss me?" Ruby shouted in excitement, making Nanami smile despite the lack of oxygen. Sweat drops appeared on the sides of everyone's heads as Nanami teasingly pulled away from the girl's embrace and petted her head like a puppy. Nope. But then Yang ended this strange moment by walking over and pulled her little sister off of her friend. So Nana, up for a spar? Yang asked. Sure, but maybe after I get something to eat, replied Nanami. Mercury said, girl, I can smell you from here, you stink. He pinched his nose and added, and a shower too. That little comment made Nanami's eyes narrow at him. Hey, you try coming out smelling like daisies after fighting a Class 7 Neurona and 2 Kumo ninjas. Barked Nanami. Hearing that made Ruby's eyes lit up with little stars. You fought 2 Kumo ninjas, said Ruby in awe, making Nanami puffed out her chest as a huge grin crossed her lips. Yup, I kicked their asses and now I have their bodies sealed in 2 scrolls, so Dad can have Mom go cash in their bounties for me. Nanami, you're so cool, said Ruby. So Nana, how did you do it? How did you KO 2 ninjas? Asked Yang, making a sheepish grin cross Nanami's lips. They were both morons and I got lucky when I spun kicked one of them into a tree where he snapped his neck on impact. Sadly it was Pyrrha that really killed the second one with her spear in his chest, but I gave both them the beating of their lives beforehand, so they well remember not to kidnap little girls in the next life. Nanami said. Ozpin narrowed his eyes while he listened to all the things his daughter was saying. I can't keep her from the ninja world forever, but I thought I still had a little bit more time before telling her the truth, thought Ozpin. While Ruby and Yang pulled up 2 more chairs to the table and sat on them, Nanami nodded her head in understanding and said, wow Nana, maybe we need to step up our sparring sessions, so next time you'll be able to handle any other ninjas you come across alone. They all ordered their food and chatted while they ate, and Nanami had 20 bowls of ramen, which always amazes and shocks everyone. I have no clue where all that food goes, it's like she has a black hole in that stomach of hers, joked Mercury. As she pointed to her stomach, Nanami yelled, shut up. I'm a growing girl and I need to eat to keep my strength up, so I eat whatever I want and you better not stop me, or you'll end up in their stomach. Mercury swallowed uneasily and stopped talking because he didn't want to wind up in her stomach. Ozpin laughed at his daughter's antics as the others joined in. My dear child, I think you were an ogre in another lifetime. Everyone laughed at that comment, except for Nanami, who gave her father an unseen dirty look while finishing her meal. 1 hour later, everyone is done eating and Ozpin paid the tab for all their meals. Everyone went their separate ways with Ozpin and Nanami heading straight for home. On their way Ozpin nose wiggled at the unpleasant smell he picked up from his daughter. Nanami, I really do agree with young Mr. Black, you do need to take a shower, he said, making Nanami turn her sights on her father and made her eyes turn from a sapphire blue to fiery she as she glared at him. Dad, you really think I would run around the village in this shape after I ate? Come on, I'm not a pig. Nanami angrily shouted as she stomps up ahead. Once at home, Nanami stomped off to her bedroom upstairs, ignoring her father the whole time. Geez, Dad really is a pain in my butt when he wants to be, Nanami complained after she shuts the door and turned on her radio. Evanescence Call Me When You're Sober was playing and Nanami began singing along with the song as she pulled out a purple long-sleeve armor mesh shirt and matching purple short-sleeve top with black roses on it and grabbed her black skirt with purple crystals on the hem of it and walked over to her dresser to take out purple mesh armor leggings and undergarments. Happy with her choice of clothing, she ran to the bathroom and slammed the door shut so she can take her shower. Back downstairs, Ozpin was in his office, sighing at his daughter's antics. That girl is going to bring this house down one day. As she stood in the doorway of his office, looking at her husband, Glinda said, well, if you stop teasing her maybe she wouldn't and my beautiful little home will make it out in one piece. When did you return, dear? Ozpin asked, causing Glinda to give him a gentle smile. She attempted, but was unable, to conceal a worried expression as she approached him and put her hand on his shoulder, saying, I just arrived. They were both startled by a sudden loud crash. Ah, I'm fine, cried Nanami, who stumbled and fell into the bathroom towel closet, knocking everything down in the process. Glinda and Ozpin exchanged a look and burst out laughing at what had happened. Despite their daughter's agility, she was still a complete idiot. She reminds me so much of Kushina at this age. Glinda grinned at the pleasant recollection and shed a single tear. How are the Tyra clan settling in? Ozpin asked, letting go of his wife a little as he wiped away the tear and gave her a hug. Glinda said, they settled in just fine and hail Tyra, Niha's father, wishes to join the ranks of the huntsmen to ensure his family's safety and repay our kindness to them. Ozpin responded, Good, tell him his offer to join is most appreciated, as he approached his wife's mouth to plant a kiss, but the couple came to a complete stop. With tears in her eyes and a hairbrush wrapped in her hair, Nanami cried out, "Dad, is Mom home?" as she dashed down the stairs into her father's office. When her daughter seemed to be having trouble, Glinda simply laughed and said, "I see it is time for another haircut." "No," Nanami complained. "I wasn't paying attention while brushing my hair and twisted my brush in my hair as I was singing with the radio." Glinda sighed and shook her head as she approached her daughter and carefully removed the hairbrush. Nanami sobbed and yelled a few times as her mother did so, and Ozpin couldn't help but laugh at this, much to Nanami's confusion. A few minutes later, Ozpin heard a knock on the front door and opened it to see a tall man wearing an animal mask and a black cloak. Ozpin went from having a cheerful, carefree face to one that was solemn and as hard as stone. Glinda swiftly drew Nanami away to the shadows of her husband's office after noticing a shift in his posture. Nanami tried to complain that her hair was being pulled so hard, but her mother had to cut her off. "Moon." She put her finger over Nanami's lips and said, "Shish, Nanami." This effectively silenced Nanami. Nanami noticed a flicker of concern in her mother's eyes. Why did she seem so uncomfortable with this man in a mask in their house? While hiding in the shadows, Nanami's mind is racing with these questions. "Professor Ozpin." The masked man bowed his head to him and spoke. "Yes, my name is Professor Ozpin. Why have you come to my house?" Ozpin asked, examining the man in front of him. The masked man took a scroll from beneath his cloak and set it on the desk in front of him. "I have been sent by the Lord of Water, who wishes to have a team of your best huntsmen track down and return a missing nin of Kiri and his student back to the land of water to face punishment. Why is he not hiring ninjas from the hidden mist to track this missing nin? He is one of them, so it should be their problem, right?" Ozpin asked, carefully reaching for the scroll after studying it. He pulled the string from around the scroll and asked, but he never received a response. He then carefully unrolled and read it, raising an eyebrow and turning to face the man. "Really, he wants to target Zabuza Momochi with one of my teams. Who is the mist demon?" Ozpin asked. The masked man said, "He felt he could trust you with this mission because your village is not one of the shinobi, and with the bloodline wars that have been going on within the village, he had no others to turn to. The other villages would see our land as weak and may try to overthrow us." Ozpin considered this for a few seconds before responding. Ozpin emphasized some of his remarks to the man in front of him, saying, "Very well, inform your master we shall take this mission and we do expect proper payment for this job." "Thank you, be assured you will be well compensated for this mission," he said, and the masked man bowed before leaving. Though she knew in her heart which team would be sent out for this mission, Glinda wasn't prepared to face the facts when she emerged from the shadows with Nanami in her arms and a lot of questions and fears in her eyes. Ozpin sighed at this, wanted to be by his wife's and daughter's sides, and tried to smile broadly at them. "Dad, what was the purpose of that?" As she looked up at him, astonished and intrigued by this new mission, Nanami asked. "Well, my dear, I have to choose a team that is better suited in tracking ninjas, but at the moment my best team is off on a mission to hunt down another S-rank missing nin from the land of grass. I send the team out while you are gone, so as of this moment." His wife cut off Ozpin. "Nanami's team is the only one we have right now, isn't it?" Glinda asked, causing Ozpin to nod and notice the fear in her eyes, which prompted him to give her a tender embrace. Ozpin tried to reassure himself and his beloved, saying, "Don't worry, dear, I know our daughter can take care of herself, and Cinder, Mercury, and Emerald will be there to help her as well." "Dad, this is really awesome." Stars appeared in Nanami's eyes as she said, "It's unbelievable that I received my first S-rank missing nin mission." "This isn't a game, Nanami," Ozpin said. "Stop treating this assignment as a game and be serious because you will be facing someone who isn't afraid to kill you to ensure their own survival." His tone was strict. "I'm sorry, Dad, I understand. I won't let you down," Nanami said, straightening up and nodding her head in agreement with her father's words. "I'll go get my team and let them know about our new assignment if you don't mind. I'll be back with the others in an hour, ready to go." As Nanami bolted from his office in their house, Ozpin nodded. "I don't like this one little bit," Glinda said, frowning slightly as she glanced up at her husband. Ozpin held Glinda close to him and said, "I know, but we did train her and her team in tracking nins, and how she is able to use chakra so freely with her dust makes her the better choice out of all the other teams we have, and before you suggest Hail Tyra, he is new and I haven't had a chance to see his skills." She whispered, a little afraid of what might go wrong for their daughter and her team. I hope so as well, Glinda. He continued to hold her. Alongside Nanami, the young girl heard Emerald yelling as she ran through the village looking for her teammates. Mercury, will you please just shut up for a moment? Emerald yelled, irritated. I have no clue why Professor Ozpin thought we worked well together. That's easy, it's because you both love me and put aside your bickering for me. Nanami said as she turned the corner and put her arms around both of their shoulders, putting an end to their argument and making them smile at her. Well, that's one reason, said Emerald, who then released herself from Nanami's hold and gave her a head noogie, which caused the three of them to laugh amicably for a short while before Nanami released herself from Emerald and turned to search for their final member. So, where is Cinder? She inquired. As she left a tiny dust shop, Cinder said, I'm over here. Looking at her friends, Nanami smiled broadly and said, well, you three best be getting your gear, we have an assignment and Dad is waiting for you back in his office at home. The three of them raised their eyebrows at her. Didn't you just return from your assignment, Nanami? I asked Emerald. Yeah, but we just got a request from the Lord of Water Country to return one of his missing nin and we are the only other nin tracking team in the village at the moment, explained Nanami. Emerald complained, I knew this was a bad idea letting you three talk me into agreeing to specialize in missing nin retrieval. Come on Emerald, between that and fighting hordes of yokai monsters, which one do you think is the most dangerous? Cinder asked her friend, which caused Emerald to pause and consider the difference in risk factor. You do have a point there. No matter how well-trained ninjas are, they are still just humans and they are easier to kill than a yokai, at least for people like us, so count me in. Count me in too, always ready for a good fight, Mercury said, grinning. Then it's settled, Nanami, we will meet you in 30 minutes at your dad's office, said Cinder. They all went off to get their supplies and equipment for their assignment, but before Cinder could go, Nanami interrupted her. Thank you for persuading Emerald, girlfriend, Nanami whispered in her ear. No problem, always there for you bestie, replied Cinder, smiling. The two girls gave each other a gentle fist bump before they left, but they were unaware that Ruby was hiding around the corner and heard the entire thing. She was eager to join the mission and wanted to see her hero in action, so she hurried to Professor Ozpin's office to try to figure out how to get at it. Good, I made it before the others, now time for plan, Ruby thought as she took a deep breath and knocked on the door of Professor Ozpin's house before Nanami and the others could. Glinda grinned at her husband when she heard the knock from his office and said, I'll be right back, dear. She excused herself and went to answer the door, wondering who it might be. As she opened the door and saw Ruby standing there, she thought. Glinda raised a golden eyebrow at the girl in front of her and said, Ruby. Is there something I could do for you? Ruby said, moving from leg to leg well and staring up at Glinda with a nervous expression in her eyes. Yes, I would like to see Professor Ozpin if you please. After giving the girl a nod and moving aside to let her in, Glinda shut the door and turned to face the young girl. Glinda said, follow me please. Ruby nodded and followed the elderly woman to a double-door office down the hall. Both women heard Professor Ozpin's voice calling out from behind one of the glass panel doors. Ozpin asked, who was at the door, dear? And Glinda led Ruby into the office. It's Ruby, dear, she has asked to speak with you, she said, turning from the young girl to her husband, who could see the interest in his eyes. Ozpin looked from his paperwork to Ruby Rose and asked, young Ruby Rose, what can I do for you this evening? Ruby took a deep breath and gave Professor Ozpin a nervous smile. Ruby said, Professor Ozpin, sir, I have a request. At this point, Ozpin set down the papers he was studying and gave Ruby Rose a direct look. And what would this request be, Miss Rose? Asked Ozpin. Well, sir, I would like to go along with Team CNBE, to observe and gain field experience. This could be a great training trip for me, explained Ruby, making Glinda looked at her husband and back at Ruby. I wonder if there is more to this than what meets the eye, thought Glinda while Ozpin studied the girl before him for several minutes. I know she sees Nanami as her personal hero and Ruby is well trained, but would she get in my daughter's way? Thought Ozpin as he worries Ruby's presences would only endanger the others on this mission, but on the other hand, she could prove to be good backup as well. He had to be sure of his decision. Tell me, Ruby Rose, would there be any other reason for you wishing to go along with Nanami's team? Questioned Ozpin. Just then he saw a small piece of guilt flash in Ruby's eyes and she quickly smiled. I just want to learn from the best, and I have also been wanting to learn more about tracking missing ninjas, so we are not just limited to only 3 teams that specializes in this field," said Ruby. "I'm hoping this will strengthen her case." Both Glinda and Ozpin were impressed with Ruby's explanation, and she did make a valuable point. Ozpin's manpower with missing nin teams has drastically decreased as of late. He has lost 3 teams to missing nin and had 4 teams retire. With Ruby's team at the top of the training list, Ozpin was considering training a number of other teams in tracking. However, he was hesitant to do so, primarily because of Ruby's advanced age and the fact that they had never killed anyone other than yokai. "Ruby, are you sure this is something you truly wish to do?" asked Ozpin, wanted to make sure Ruby understands what she's getting into. Just then they heard Nanami enter the house. "I'm home, everyone," yelled Nanami as she came walking down the hallways to her father's office, where she saw Ruby Rose standing before her father. "Hey Ruby, what brings you here?" "I am here to request to go along with you and your team to track a missing nin, for I want to expand in my field and learn from you firsthand the proper way of tracking ninjas." Ruby's response caused Nanami to raise an eyebrow and turn to both of her parents for an explanation. Certainly, they wouldn't send her, but it would be a great on-hand training exercise for the girl. Nanami's eyes glistened with wonder. "If she comes, I could teach her some of the tricks I picked up along the way as well as what Kya-senpai taught me, but I'm not sure how the others will feel about Ruby tagging along," Nanami thought to herself for a good couple of minutes. These 2 main ideas left Nanami at a standstill, so she turned to her father for clarification. It seemed that Ozpin and Nanami shared these thoughts. "Miss Rose, do you really believe you could defeat a ninja who has been likened to a demon in the real world?" Ozpin asked, causing Ruby's eyes to widen as she pondered for a moment. "Yes, I believe I could," was her honest response. Ruby turned to Nanami and said, "Please Nanami, allow me to go. It would greatly help me understand how a missing nin team works, and I wouldn't be blindsided once I take my team on their first tracking mission." She looked up to her hero with puppy dog eyes. Nanami turned to face her father and said, "Dad, she does make a good point, but in the end it is up to you if she goes or not." At that moment, Nanami's group entered Professor Ozpin's office. With a broad smile, Mercury said, "Come on Emerald, you know you love me. If you didn't, you wouldn't have saved me last time." The remark caused Emerald to roll her eyes. "In your dreams, Mercury, I only saved you because Nanami would have been sad if you had died, otherwise I would have allowed that strange wolf to eat you," Emerald said, causing Cinder to shake her head at their antics. She then turned to see Ruby standing in the office with Nanami, Professor Ozpin, and Glinda. As Emerald and Mercury stopped arguing to look at them, she slowly raised her eyebrow in astonishment. "Hey Nanami, how are you?" Mercury was asked. Cinder's eyes widened like dinner plates as Nanami smiled and said, "Well Mercury, Ruby here would like to join us on our mission to track a missing nin." Cinder then turned to face Ruby. "Are you certain you can manage this, Ruby?" Concerned for the young huntress, Cinder said, "Missing nins are not the same as yokais, it's something much more complex." Ruby put Cinder's concerns to rest, if only slightly, by explaining, "I know Cinder, a missing nin is human, and while they are not as strong as yokais, they are much more unpredictable, for yokai have one single thought in general when they meet humans, and that's to kill." Emerald and Mercury simply nodded in agreement as they listened. Ruby does have a dual weapon that could come in handy if something happens, or Nanami could set her up in a tree so she can shoot the missing nin if he doesn't see her, Professor Ozpin said, glancing from his daughter's team to Ruby and back. "Miss Rose, are you really determined to do this?" Ozpin asked, closely observing the young girl in front of him. Ozpin nodded and turned to Nanami as Ruby said, "Yes, I think so, it will also help me on how to train my team upon my return." Ozpin said, "Well Nanami, it appears you will be training Ruby Rose during this mission, and the others will assist you on this training." Ruby's eyes widened and she grinned as brightly as the sun. "Thank you Professor Ozpin, thank you, thank you, thank you." Ruby jumped around with delight, making Nanami smile before turning back to her father. "Sure thing Dad, it would make it easier to have her train hands-on, but, Dad," said Nanami. "Yes, Princess?" Ozpin inquired. Ozpin became anxious and nodded in comprehension as Nanami said, "This will be the only time I will do field training." She then turned to smile at Ruby and her teammates, saying, "Okay Ruby, go to your home, gear up, and meet us at the main gates in 15 minutes. Ruby hurried out of the office and out the front door, saying, "All right, thank you Nanami." Cinder and the others turned to face Nanami and Professor Ozpin after Ruby left. Nana, are you certain about this? Gazing at her best friend, Cinder asked. Yes, Cinderella is undoubtedly one of the best snipers in this village, and aside from her uncle Kiro, she is the only one who can wield a scythe. Nanami grinned at Cinder and turned to her father for the mission file, saying, "Oh, I forgot. Dad, I need the information on the missing nin we are hunting." "Yes, without a doubt. This is all the information you require about Zabuza Momochi, his associates, and their locations, Nana." As he slid the mission scroll to her, Ozpin said, "And Nana, I personally believe you made the right choice of adding Ruby to the team." She accepted it with a smile, pleased that her father believed in her judgment. Emerald's eyebrows twitched as Mercury complained, "Great, just what I always wanted to do, babysit a 15-year-old. She then slammed Mercury in the head with her fist, saying, "Shut up you moron, you're just mad she outshot you the other day at shooting practice." Emerald glared at Mercury. Nanami waved to her parents before heading up to her room with her friends following her. "Come on Em. No killing Mercury before we leave for the mission. Now follow me to my room. I have to pack and resupply my dust. Then we'll meet up with Ruby at the gate and we'll go over our mission and who our target is." Emerald crossed her arms over her chest and followed her friend and team leader up to her room with the others, saying, "Fine, I'll let the nin get his ass." Cinder raised an eyebrow at her best friend when Nanami pulled out a black belt from her closet and placed it over her brown dust belt. "Nana, the last time you wore dual dust belts, we faced a two-headed lion with a snake tail. Are you sure this is not overkill?" Cinder said after Nanami pushed her door open and entered her room, dropping the scroll on the bed and going to her backpack to dump its contents on the floor. "What can I say, Cinder? Dad's reaction to the message about who we are going after wasn't so good. I believe if he had his way we wouldn't be going and would have made Hu and his team come out of retirement for this job," Nanami said, causing her best friend to smile. "That awful?" Cinder double-checked her supply of dust and asked. As she finished putting on her belt, Nanami said, "Yeah, that bad. We will be pushed to our limits with this mission, my friends. But don't worry, those 4 scrolls have about 30 years worth of dust sealed in them." As she went to her bed, she picked up the pink scroll, unrolled it, and unpacked 6 dust crystals. She then loaded her belt, resealed the remaining ones, and put the scrolls into her backpack and put them on. Meanwhile, Mercury was looking around her room, which was a mess, and he thought he saw something moving from under a pile of said dirty cloths. Mercury said, a little disgusted, "Damn Nanami, you need to clean your room." The girl gave him a glare. As she led everyone out of her room and back down the stairs, Nanami said, "Shut up, I haven't had time because I've been on non-stop missions for the last month, but if you're so worried about it, why don't you clean it for me when we return?" Mercury turned away and closed his mouth, realizing that he would never clean this pig stack. "I didn't think you would. Now come on, we have 5 minutes to get to the gate and meet Ruby." Before they waved Nanami and her friends off to the main gate, where they noticed Yang hovering over her younger sister, Nanami said, "Bye Mom and Dad, see you soon and please don't worry, we will be back within a week or so, depending on the difficulty of the mission. Ruby, are you sure you have everything and are you truly sure you want to do this?" Nanami asked. As their uncle Kiro approached them from behind, Yang appeared concerned for her younger sister. "She will be all right, Yang. This will benefit her because your friends and team are on the list for the next team to receive training for missing 9 recovery and retrieval missions. To aid in the team's training, it's critical that the team leader is aware of these things beforehand," said Kiro. When Yang heard this news, his eyes grew as big as saucers. "Really, Uncle Kiro? Who, though, signed us up for this?" Yang asked. "I did." Nanami smiled at the 3 of them as she approached them with her team. "Good afternoon, Professor Kiro." Nanami waved at him. "Nanami Uzumaki Namikaze, I should have known you were behind this." Kiro smirked at her while standing there sluggishly. "Nanami, really, how could you?" Yang asked, staring at Nanami in disbelief. "For one, that is." Cinder smiled and said, "Your team is almost as good as ours at hunting monsters. If you just put in more effort into your training, you could go far and maybe someday you'll surpass us." Cinder's right. I believe in you guys, so while we are away I want your team to work on team building exercises and when we return, it's going to be boot camp. Nanami said with a devilish grin that made even Kiro shudder. This made Nanami agree with her best friend. After thinking, if she's anything like her mother in that regard, these girls are so doomed, Kiro turned to face Yang and said, just do what she says, trust me it will be better for you and the others in the long run. Yang looked at her uncle, a little taken aback. Does he know something we don't? She asked, nodding before turning back to Nanami. Man girl, when you know who hears Ruby is going on a private training mission with you and your team, all hell's going to break loose. Yang said with a smirk on her face. Nanami answered devilishly, then when I return, I'll have some extra special training just for her. On the opposite side of the village, at Training Ground 3. Weiss stopped sparring with Blake, paled, and felt a shiver run down her spine. A concerned Weiss said, I have a bad feeling Blake, something bad is going to happen to me in the future. Blake simply shook her head and glanced at the girl with the white hair. Blake smirked at her and said, well, it might be something you deserve. Weiss puffed out her cheeks and glared at her teammate, but before she could say anything more, Professor Ozpin unexpectedly showed up, shocking both girls. Then he smiled at both girls and disappeared without a trace. Ladies, as of now you will be starting a new training regiment until Ruby returns from her training mission. Back at the main gates in the meantime, the team of misfits was preparing to depart. When Nanami looked at everyone and noticed that Mercury had a playful sparkle in his eyes, she asked, does everyone have everything? Mercury responded, no I don't. This caused the other people to turn to face him. Nanami asked suspiciously, okay, what are you missing Mercury? Mercury smiled at Yang and she smiled back, saying, a beautiful girlfriend to send me off. As she cried fictitious tears, Yang said, oh my dear Mercury, I will miss you so while you are gone, I shall count the days till you return. The two's antics caused everyone to perspire. As Emerald grabbed Mercury by the ear and the group headed for the land of Wave, Nanami said, all right, break it up you two. Let's just get this show on the road. After 7 hours of non-stop walking down the dirt road to the land of fire, Nanami pulled everyone to a stop so she could give them a break and explain the mission. As Nanami took the mission scroll out of her bag and opened it, she said, okay everyone, we have now reached the land of fire. Which means we are going to be passing through other shinobi lands. We'll most certainly run into other teams of ninjas on this trip. It says here, that we will be going after Momochi Zabuza, a high A to S class missing nin and one of the members of the 7 Swordsmen of the Hidden Mist. He is well known for his silent death tactic he uses and has also been given the nickname, the Demon of the Mist. Momochi Zabuza fled the village of Kiri after his failed assassination attempt of the Mizukage, and the Lord of the Land of Water wants Momochi Zabuza returned alive if possible, dead if necessary. It also states down here that Momochi Zabuza's assassination attempt was due to wanting to stop the blood wars between clans and ninjas with bloodlines against non-bloodline clans, ninjas civilians, but after he left the Mizukage, Yagura vanished and hasn't been seen since. Now a new Mizukage is coming to power and wishes for his return, so he can become a Kiri ninja once again. Explained Nanami carefully, so everyone hears and understands the mission, then rolled the scroll back up and puts it back into her backpack before addressing her team again. When Nanami said, this mission will test us on how well we handle such a threat, so Mercury and Emerald, I expect you two to stop your little quarrels and stay on your guard, because we really don't know what to really expect from him. Her two teammates gave each other another glare before nodding affirmatively to their leader. While on my most recent mission, I also heard a rumor that Zabuza has a student who is working for a dubious scumbag in the land of Wave, with the village of Konoha being the closest hidden village. Nanami clarified, I am fairly certain that we will be encountering a team or two en route to the land of Wave. Did you hear anything about his student's abilities and power levels, Nanami? Sadly no, so we will have an unknown factor, so Ruby, if any of us tell you to run or hide, do as we say okay, because you are not close enough to take on a ninja of his caliber, not yet at least, so do you understand? Cinder asked, but Nanami simply shook her head. I'll do as you say, Nanami-sensei. Ruby responded gravely, looking from Nanami to the others and observing the gravity of the situation on their faces. In the interim, a 3-person genin team, a silver-haired jonin, and an inebriated elderly man in a Chinese straw hat were standing at the main gate of the village of Konoha. All right, team, we're supposed to accompany Tazuna here, return to the land of Wave, and keep watch until the bridge he's constructing is complete. Is it correct, Tazuna-san, that you were attacked by highwaymen and bandits during the bridge's construction and while traveling, as stated in the mission parameters? The now named bridge builder was asked by the jonin with silver hair. The old drunk said, yes, that is correct. I just hope I make it home alive and my daughter and grandson are all right, Tazuna said. How long will it take us to reach the land of Wave, Kakashi-sensei? A girl with pink hair asked. Well, Sakura, with us going at civilian speed it will take us about a day. Tazuna-san here expressed that he doesn't want to stop to camp and that he must return to his home right away so he can finish the building of the bridge. Kakashi replied with a grin on his face. A boy with black hair who looked like a duck's butt said, that will be easy for an elite Uchiha like me. The other pale-skinned boy gave them a spooky fake smile when Sakura squealed, you're so cool Sasuke-kun. Honestly sensei, I'm not sure if Billboard Brow will be able to handle this, the boy said to Kakashi. Stop talking, Sakura screamed so loudly that she scared off all the animals in the area. With our hunters, in the meantime. The group had just resumed their journey when Nanami came to a complete stop, causing the others to pause and turn to stare at her. Hey girl, what's the matter? Cinder asked, glancing worriedly at Nanami. As if startled by something, Nanami turned to face Cinder and said, I heard something unsettling. She then turned to face the forest and watched the birds take flight, saying, I think I heard a ghost or a banshee. The others just started to perspire as they stared at their leader when she said this in terror. Oh no, Nana is afraid of a small ghost. Mercury was teased. Did you pack your baby and teddy bear in a blank manner? He teased once more, but quickly regretted it after Nanami gave him a hard arm punch. Shut up, Mercury, Nanami yelled angrily. Oh no, Mercury rubbed his arm in agony and said, Nanami, I was just playing with you. He then fell to the ground and attempted a leg sweep, but Nanami reacted quickly, jumping over him, flipping over his head, and landing on a tree branch next to them while glaring at Mercury. Just you wait till we get home, I'm going to make you train Weiss, she said with an evil smirk, making Mercury pale with fear as he watched Nanami leap down from the tree branch. Ruby looked at Nanami and asked, how much longer do we have till we are near the border to the land of Wave? Nanami glanced ahead and noticed the road split, one leading to Suna and Wave and the other to the village of Konoha. Nanami made everyone nod before they resumed their journey by saying, we have about maybe 6 more hours. We can rest again at the border. In the interim, the bridge builder and the Genin team were not too far ahead of them. Kakashi-sensei, why doesn't the land of Wave not have its own hidden village? Asked Sakura. Sakura scowled at the elderly drunk, thinking, damn old drunken fuck. Tazuna said, that's easy to explain Pinky, we are a dirt poor land with a lord that squanders our money on foolish things and takes bribes from evil little trolls to look the other way, but with my bridge I hope to open more trades between our land and others and maybe one day, we will have a ninja village of our own. Sakura cheered up and nodded in understanding as Kakashi explained, well that wasn't what I was going to say, but Tazuna-san does get straight to the point, for creating, running and maintaining a ninja village causes money and a lot of it either from the Lord's own vaults or through ninja missions, you understand now Sakura. Before turning back to the road ahead, after walking for a few more minutes, Kakashi noticed a pool of water by the side of the road. When it hasn't rained for weeks, they disguise themselves with a water puddle. When Kakashi glanced at his students, he said, these guys are real morons. However, it seemed that only Sai had noticed the pathetic attempt at a disguise from the enemy ninja and was using one of his scrolls. It looks like we will be dealing with missing nins. Sai looked from Duckbutt and Billboard and thought, those two on my team are useless. Why Lord Danzo wants me to work with them so badly is beyond me. Shaking his head, Sai took out his ninja scroll, put out his brush, and opened his ink bottle. He quickly started painting mice and, using a few hand signals, whispered, ninja art, beast scroll. The mice emerged from the scroll and ran toward the shoddy genjutsu, but the Konoha team was unaware that Team CNEM was rapidly catching up to them. Nanami-sensei, do you really think my team and myself have what it takes to do what you and Team CNM can do? Ruby asked her idol as she walked backwards, making Nanami laugh at the red loving girl's antics. Ruby ran up to Nanami and turned around to face her. She told the young girl in front of her, I have faith in your team and faith in you Ruby, I can see that you have the making of a great team. But, we do have a long road ahead of us to get you there. Ruby grinned broadly at her compliments, and the other members of Team CNM grinned as well. They stopped dead in their tracks when they heard a scream not far ahead of them. Looking past Ruby's shoulder, they saw a ninja team engaged in combat. Just minutes earlier, when one of Sai's mice bit one of the ninja's ears, the two ninja hiding in the puddle jumped out and screamed like young girls. Let's get back to the present. Nanami recognized the ninja from whom she had stolen the bingo book and narrowed her eyes at the fighting ninjas. Mercury watched as the two masked ninjas chained the silver-haired ninja and tore him to pieces, making Nanami turn to her friend and smile. "Should we help them, Nanami?" Mercury asked. "Not just yet, let's see what that Leaf Shinobi team is made of," Nanami replied. Ruby gripped her scythe, snapper gun and looked up at Nanami for clarification. Her silver eyes were filled with worry, and she made Cinder smile as she approached her. She held Ruby's shoulders and reassured her, making her smile broadly. "Don't worry, little one, he used a substitution jutsu, he's not dead." The others were startled because they didn't hear him coming when a male voice next to Nanami said, "Yo." Nanami asked the silver-haired man, who sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose, "Yo yourself, shouldn't you be helping your students before Duck Butt there gets killed?" Nanami rolled her eyes and pulled out her copy of the bingo book she had stolen from him weeks before when he winked at her and vanished in a cloud of smoke, saying, "I guess you're right, thanks cutie." As she turned the pages and saw the photo of the two missing nins in front of them, she grinned and turned to face her friends, thinking, "Thank God he did not see it in my possession." "Okay guys, those two before us fighting those kids are the demon brothers from Kiri and are Chunin level ninjas. The price on their heads isn't too bad, but it appears they will be the ones collecting it though," Nanami said, pointing to the strange pale kid knocking out one of the brothers and the silver-haired ninja killing the other. The silver-haired ninja, Kakashi Hatake, also known as the copycat ninja, Kakashi of the Sharingan Eye, or cold-blooded killer Kakashi, was at the top of a list she discovered when she went back to the book. With the exception of one, Hatake has used his Sharingan Eye to copy more than 1,000 jutsu. However, the name, purpose, and even elemental affinity of the jutsu are not mentioned in the book. He is therefore powerful. As she and her team watched Kakashi question the final demon brother from a distance, Nanami thought, perhaps I could face him in a spar someday. Alongside Kakashi, as soon as the second Kiri nin came to, Kakashi asked, "Tell me, why did you attack us?" As he responded, the ninja's face lit up with a smile. To Kakashi's surprise, he responded, "Gato, he wants the bridge builder dead, for that he has put a pretty high bounty on that old drunk's head." He asked again, "Gato, what does a businessman want with the old man?" The ninja shocked Kakashi, his team, and Tazuna by saying, "Power. He wants complete control over the Land of Waves, and the Lord of Waves is a fool to allow Gato in, and I regret to inform you of this, but the Lord of Waves is dead." Returning to the CENM team. With the group's best hearing, Cinder heard most of the conversation, including the news of the Wave Lord's passing. Her eyes narrowed at the news, wondering how they would be compensated if the Lord of Wave was no longer alive. She set that thought aside for the moment and focused on Nanami. "Leave out the part about the Wave Lord's death," she said to her best friend, "Nana, maybe we should tag along with these ninjas, I have a feeling they will lead us to our target." Maybe you're right, Sin, but the question is, will they allow us to tag along with them?" she asked aloud, rubbing her hand over her face as she considered her options. Returning to Team Kakashi, after defeating the Kiri nin and sealing his own and his brother's bodies in a scroll, Kakashi gave Tazuna a spooky smile that betrayed his extreme discontent. As the old man looked at Kakashi, the enraged masked nin said, "You have a lot of explaining to do, Tazuna-san. You told the Hokage this mission will only be AC rank now, but as of now we have gone up to AB rank to a lower ranking mission, so you better talk, now." He explained in an increasingly desperate voice, "Look, I know I lied, but I had no other choice. That fool of an ex-lord bled us dry and I was only able to get enough money for AC rank mission and I have to go back to finish the bridge I'm building or Gato will ruin us all." Following that, Kakashi became extremely frustrated. When the masked man essentially called him and Sakura weak and useless, Sasuke glared at his sensei, saying, "We are not weak and useless, Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi said, "I'm not sure if we will be able to continue this mission, Tazuna. Half of my genin team isn't ready to face high-ranking ninjas, let alone live if they face an A or S class missing nin." In an attempt to impress Sasuke, Sakura said, "Yeah sensei, we can handle this, there isn't anything you can say that will make us abandon this mission." Sai sighed and glanced over his shoulder at his sensei as he wrapped Sasuke's hand to stop the poison from bleeding. The pale-skinned boy, clearly unhappy with this development, said, "We have no choice in this matter sensei, these two want to go no matter what any of us say." However, he is forced to comply. They all turned to see Nanami and her team when the unknown female voice said, I believe my team and myself would be glad to offer you any help you may need on your way to the land of waves, good sire. Glancing at what he believed to be a blonde civilian girl and her civilian companions, Kakashi raised a silver eyebrow. He gave her his best eye smile and said, "Sorry miss, but I'm afraid that would be dangerous to let you civilians come along." He then frowned when she and her friends began laughing uncontrollably. Nanami smiled back at Kakashi, who gave her a startled look. "First of all, Kakashi-san, we are hunters, not civilians. Second, my team and I have been trained to hunt and track down missing nins for 6 years now, so trust me, you'll need our help. What, however, you appear to be only 15 or 16 years old. How are you in charge of your own team already? Please don't worry, despite my age, I'm more than capable as both a team leader and a huntress, and my teammates are all just as capable as well," added Kakashi, who didn't think the girl could be a huntress or even a team leader. Nanami remarked with a playful smile, making the rest of Team 7, especially Sasuke, appear unhappy. "Plus, my team and I know what we will be facing, so your team will need all the backup they need, especially with the battle display we just witnessed." "Dope, stop talking." Ruby, Mercury, Cinder, and Emerald glared at Sasuke as he growled at the blonde girl, saying, "Don't act like you could have done better." Surprisingly, Nanami simply grinned. Sakura glared at the blonde girl as Nanami pointed to her and said, "Oh, trust me, Tem, I would have done better. Every member of my team would have done better than any of you genins, especially that poor excuse of a kunoichi over there. What the hell do you even know about being a kunoichi? First of all, I know that when going on a mission, one should only use odorless soaps, but I see that you did not listen when your sensei told you that in the academy," Sakura screamed, causing Nanami to smile bittersweetly as she approached Sakura and reached out for a strand of her hair to run through her fingers. Nanami pointed to Sasuke and said, "I guess you spent too much time fangirling over that poor excuse of a ninja there." Sakura dropped her hair, turned away, and walked over to duck butt. Shortly after turning around, Sakura pulled out a badly maintained kunai and rushed at her well, screaming in rage. Nanami, however, saw her poor attempt at an attack, and before anyone knew it, she spun around, grabbed Sakura by the hair, and twisted it around her fist, causing Sakura to drop the kunai in an attempt to get her to let go. "I'll fucking rip off your arm if you don't let go of my hair." Sakura looked at Nanami like a psychotic murderer seeking blood as he yelled and warned her. Meanwhile, as she turned back to watch the show, Cinder said, "It's best to just keep out of this, Kakashi-san. Nanami has a point to prove and it will to everyone's benefit to just let her continue." Kakashi, for his part, did not like this but chose to heed Cinder's advice and let it continue while standing by, just in case it goes too far. Returning with Nanami and Sakura. "Are you serious? With your spaghetti-like, fangirl arms, how do you intend to tear them off? You do not have the skills nor the training to take me on in a proper battle, not to mention being completely clueless in taking care of your weapons. I mean, look at that poor excuse for a kunai you dropped, it doesn't even look sharp enough to cut through butter," Nanami said, laughing at the outrage her comment had caused for the pink-haired girl before her face turned dead serious. Her eyes were full of contempt, which only made the pinkett even more enraged. "I'll fucking kill you, you bitch. Excuse me, Nanami-chan, but would you please let go of my student's hair before you rip it off to the scalp?" Sakura yelled as she struggled to twist and pull her hair away from the blonde in an attempt to strangle her, but she was unsuccessful and winced in agony as Nanami's grip tightened around her hair. Kakashi then approached them and cleared his throat. Kakashi asked her with his best eye smile, making Nanami take the Jonin's polite request into consideration while looking down at the still angry and in pain pinkett. Finally, after a few minutes of think on it, she let go of Sakura's hair and pushed her hard towards the Jonin who caught her in his arms. "Fine, here is your student Kakashi-san, but in the future I suggest you give her a much more strict training regimen and maybe taking away some of her more useless stuff, like her makeup and hair product," she told Kakashi, who nodded at her suggestion. "Good idea, Nanami-chan. Sakura, go get your stuff now," demanded Kakashi, making Sakura pale and look outraged that he would listen to that girl, but sensei. Single quote. "No but Sakura, Miss Nanami was right about your performance as a kunoichi today and it's time you take your training more seriously and grow out of those fangirl habits of yours. Now go," Kakashi said more sternly so that Sakura would have no choice but to obey, and she did, albeit with great reductase and anime tear pouring out her eyes. A few minutes later, Sakura returns with her backpack full of makeup, hair products, cutesy outfits and other such junk and reluctantly gives it to her sensei before turning back to Nanami and gave her best death glare, which by the way wasn't scary at all, you bitch. Sakura growled, you well pay for this, my mother is on the civilian council, but all it did was make Nanami laugh. What an empty threat, I'm not a shinobi of your village, hell, I'm not even of your village at all, so what can your mother or her little friends on the council possibly do to me? She asked the pink kid innocently. Sakura wanted to reply, but then realized that she was and that made the blonde smile. As I suspect, they can do nothing, so you do us all a favor and hush, replied Nanami, effectively shutting the pink banshee's mouth before turning back to Kakashi. So, what do you say we join you on your journey to the land of Wave? I guess that would be fine, but why tag along with us? We have business there as well, and there's safety in numbers, she said to the Jonin with silver hair, causing Kakashi to smile. He asked her, but Tazuna was the first to speak. Why else would they all be here if she wasn't pursuing Gato? He remarked as he took another sip from his sake bottle. Nanami smiled at the old man and ignored the shady look he gave her for referring to him as old man, saying, nice guess, old man, but no, we are not after Gato, we just have business in the land of waves. In other places, using a pool of enchanted water, a man watched her with lustful eyes, unaware of Nanami and the group. She is so beautiful and so strong, qualities she will need when she is by my side, he thought, keeping a close eye on her. A laughing little girl, no older than 8, by the man's side said, she is beautiful Nissan and strong-willed too, when will I get to meet her? Soon little sister, when the time is right, I will bring her here personally. The mysterious man responded with a seductive smile as he continued to watch his future bride. As she made her way back to her friends and teammates, Nanami said, and now that the pest problem has been resolved, let me introduce you to the rest of Team CENM and my student for this mission. First off, the girl with long black hair and amber eyes, wearing this stylish Chinese dress, is my best friend, Cinder Falls, Nanami said. It's a pleasure to meet you all, Cinder said with a polite curtsy before Nanami went on to the others. Next up is Emerald Sustre, the girl with the mint green hair and chocolate brown skin. Hey, Emerald waved her hand languidly as she spoke. Mercury Black is the guy next to her, with silver hair and a dorky expression. Hell hey, Mercury yelled angrily. Nana, my expression isn't dorky. He crossed his arms and gave Nanami a death glare, which she dismissed with ease. Yes, whatever you say, Merc. And lastly, my student Ruby Rose is the cutie with black, red hair and silver eyes over there. Nanami introduced herself, causing Ruby to wave enthusiastically at everyone and smile, but she stopped when Sai approached her and gave her a spooky fake smile that sent shivers down her spine. There is something really wrong with this kid, she thought to herself as she returned the genuine smile. Sai greeted her by holding out his hand and said, hello, little red. My name is Sai, it is a pleasure to meet you and it will be a pleasure to be traveling with you too. Yaaa, it will be a pleasure for me too, Ruby said, shaking the hand he gave her. Everyone watched as the two interacted, with Sakura snorting in disgust, Tazuna and Sasuke showing no concern, and Kakashi simply grinned at what he believed to be a touching moment, before turning back to Nanami. Kakashi said, well, I guess it will be fine to travel as a group, you and your team seem to know what you do, Miss Nanami. You can bet on that Kakashi, my team and student are the best at what they do, you can trust me when I say that. Kakashi nodded before she passed him and positioned herself between Sasuke and Tazuna. Well, I'm at it, I'll pump the old fart for some information, for Gato to want to eliminate him, something big must be going on, she thought. This statement made Nanami smile. Tazuna was eyeing the girl over his sake bottle in the meantime, and he felt uneasy with the way she was staring at him. What do you want, Blondie? Well, Tazuna, I was just wondering if you could tell me about the land of Wave is all, he said at last, causing her to smile at him, clasp his arm, and drag him along the path while her friends and others trailed behind them. She smiled sweetly at him, her blue eyes glimmering up at him, causing a slight flush to appear on his cheeks. Tazuna began, well, it's an island nation, really, so the island has to deal with shipping companies a lot for its goods that it imports and exports. When Nanami asked, she glanced over her shoulder at Cinder and winked as Cinder nodded. This gesture served as her cue to pay attention to what the others were discussing in case it could aid them in their mission, and she clearly understood the message. Yeah, but with the bridge I'm constructing, we'll be able to escape Gato and anyone else attempting to kidnap my house once more. Flames appeared in Tezuna's inebriated eyes as he said, "It is the hope of the people of the Land of Waves." "What do you mean by holding your house hostage, though?" "Wow, that's fantastic," questioned Nanami, making Tezuna sigh heavily and look down at the girl at his side. 2 years ago, Gato came to our land. At first he was promising jobs and fair trades, but it was all a scam to take over the land and make the people his slaves in all but name. He has several large ports built around the island along with 2 mansions that he lives in at any given time. But they also house his thugs. Tezuna responded as he appeared to lose his glaze in his thoughts as he gazed at her. In the interim, Sasuke was thinking about Team CENM as he was strolling with the others. He failed to see what made these huntsmen unique or different from other ninjas like him. To him, they simply appeared to be regular people wearing silly costumes. He looked to Kakashi for answers because he was tired of speculating about their true identities. His question caused Mercury and Emerald, who were behind them, to glance at one another before turning back to face the 2 in front of them. "Kakashi-sensei, what is the difference between ninjas and those so-called huntsmen? If they are not making this whole huntsman thing up?" he asked. Kakashi explained, "Huntsmen do exist, Sasuke. They are people highly trained to hunt down monsters called yokai, and destroy them. For that purpose they use aura and dust to better fight these monsters, just like we ninjas use chakra for our ninjustice and genjutsus." Surprisingly, Sasuke actually found this explanation to be fascinating, even though he found it difficult to believe that there are yokaises in the world. However, Kakashi then said something that further piqued his curiosity. He asked, "What is dust and aura, sensei?" As he glanced back at the 2 hunters skulking behind him, causing Mercury and Emerald to smile at the duck-butt boy. Dust is a powdered or crystallized substance created with the minerals and herbs only found in the surrounding area of our home, the Komedachi village. It allows us huntsmen to use the elements like your chakra allows you to perform elemental ninjutsu. As for aura, it is the physical manifestation of a huntsman's soul, used more communally as a force field to increase our body's defense or to heal minor injuries. In most cases, it grants huntsman a special power that is unique to him called a semblance. It's like one of those bloodline limits some ninja clans are famous for, explained Emerald, making Sasuke and Kakashi nod at Emerald's explanation. Sakura was becoming irritated with these so-called huntsmen at the same time. She spat out at everyone, making Emerald cross her arms behind her head and gaze lazily at the Pinkett. Who the hell cares about stupid dust, useless auras, and imaginary monsters? You losers wouldn't stand a chance against a real ninja. Why? Because we ninjas are superior to anyone. Sakura became even more enraged when she looked at the stupid girl and said, "Really? Well, it appears then you're not a real ninja, since Nanami was able to manhandle you so easily." They then resumed their silent stroll. After a few more minutes of silence, Ruby approached Nanami to speak. Ruby asked, "Hey Nanami, Kakashi's explanation about dust and chakra made me think, aren't you able to use chakra like them?" Causing everyone to turn to face the blonde-hair huntress, who was still linked to Tezuna. She turned back to face the road ahead of them and said, "Yeah, I'm able to use chakra along with aura, what about it?" This small insight caught Kakashi's attention and prompted him to approach Nanami and Ruby. Since it was unprecedented for a huntsman to possess both chakra and aura simultaneously, he asked Nanami, "Really, you are able to use both chakra and aura?" Nanami turned to face him and grinned in response to his query. "Yeah, I'm able to use both. My parents were pretty surprised when I used chakra for the first time and have been training me in how to use it properly ever since. They even asked for help from your third Hokage since they knew next to nothing about chakra control, but I never really used any ninjutsu or genjutsu. I prefer to use dust in battle." She stated the truth. With enormous puppy eyes, the young huntress asked, "Wow, that sounds amazing. Could you teach me how to use chakra to Nanami-sensei?" But all it did was make Nanami smile pitifully at her biggest admirer. She comfortingly patted the young girl's shoulder and said, "I'm afraid I must say no, little Rose. You don't have enough chakra in your system for me to teach you how to control it that way." Ruby, for her part, was hunched over and sad that she couldn't learn chakra control, but she quickly recovered and stood upright with a smile. If she couldn't do that, she would find another way to become stronger and prove herself to her idol, which only made Nanami smile at her friend's tenacity. After a few more minutes, Ruby and Emerald turned pale as Tezuna abruptly said, "We are almost there. Once on the docks we will take the boat that will take us on the other side." The shores of the land of waves were visible. Together, they exclaimed, "Hold it! We have to ride on a boat." Nobody said we had to take a boat. Mercury gave them a playful smile. He asked the two girls, "And how did you guys think we were going to cross the water?" When Emerald said, we take Tazuna's bridge," Sasuke and Sakura both sneered at her for even bringing up the idea of taking the bridge over the narrow stretch of ocean separating the two countries. Sasuke laughed, causing Emerald to glare at the duck-butt boy with enough intensity to make the Uchiha stop laughing. She then charged at him, pulling out her twin sickles guns to cut out the little bastard's balls, but two things stopped her from doing so. First, Sakura saw what she was going to do and jumped between her and Sasuke to stop her, and second, Mercury's powerful arms stopped her before she could reach either of them. With a sarcastic tone, Mercury asked, "Okay Mr. Ducky, do you have any better ideas?" As he kept his murderous-looking teammate at bay while staring at the boy and his small, human shield. As he considered a solution, Sasuke made sure to remain behind Sakura and out of Emerald's weaponry's reach. He finally said to the group, I know, we could water walk over there." The entire group gave him a sardonic look, with Sakura, of course, looking perplexed at the idea of water walking. "I still haven't shown you or your group how to water walk, Sasuke." Kakashi grinned and said, "Even if I did, Cinder, Emerald, Mercury, and Ruby have no chakra to use this technique, so I'm afraid your idea is denied." Sasuke growled in annoyance at having his brilliant idea rejected, which made Mercury smile happily and calmed Emerald. Off the side of the group in the meantime, while the others went about their business, Nanami and Cinder discussed other options. After some time, they eventually returned to the group with a plan. "Hey guy, Cinder and I have found the perfect solution. We will just use our combined dust to create a temporary bridge of our own. That way, we can get to the other side a lot faster and spare Emerald and Ruby the dreaded boat ride." Nanami exclaimed with pride. Tazuna laughed at the thought and took another swig from his sake bottle. "You girls honestly believe you can build a bridge with that magic fairy dust you carry around with you, what a joke." The elderly man laughed. Sakura laughed and remarked, "That's the most ridiculous plan I have ever heard in my life." Sasuke didn't say anything, but he and Sai both seemed to grow two heads as they stared at the two girls. Kakashi was the only ninja in the group who did not laugh because he had personally witnessed the power of dust in the right hands. "I think it's a great idea, girl," Kakashi said with an eye smile, startling his team and the bridge builder and causing them to fall to the ground. However, he was troubled by something. He questioned the two girls, "But will it last long enough for us to cross?" As she attempted to reassure the Jonin, Nanami said, "We believe so, but it will require a lot more dust than what we have out right now, but fortunately I have a storage scroll with 30 years worth of dust in it, so it will be just fine." She then put her backpack on the ground and knelt down next to it, to loosen the drawstring and flip open the top. A tiny stuffed fox fell out of her bag as everyone watched her start to dig through it and retrieve her dust storage scroll. Ruby quickly picked it up after noticing it. Ruby hugged the stuffed fox to Nanami and said, "Ah, that little fella is so cute, can I keep it?" Nanami looked up to see what Ruby was doing with her doll and swiftly took it from her arms and put it back in her bag. The blonde blushed a little in embarrassment and said, "Sorry Ruby, but no, he is mine." Ruby hunched over in sadness, which the blonde noticed. Ruby was cheered up and forced to give Nanami a grateful hug when Nanami said, "But if you want, I can let you borrow it from time to time." She unrolled the storage scroll and prepared to open its contents after the hug fest was over. She looked up at the amber-eyed girl and said, "All right, let's start building this bridge. Sin, how much fire dust do you think you'll need for this?" When her best friend asked her a question, Cinder assumed a contemplative pose while beaming a Cheshire Cat smile. The blonde nodded as she said, "I think I'll need about 12 fire dust crystal to be on the safe side. This way if the bridge begins to fail, I'll still have enough dust to make it last a little longer." She then directed a tiny amount of chakra into the scroll, causing a medium black oak chest to appear, with a golden latches holding it tightly. She opened it quickly, took out 12 fire dust crystals from the side of ping-pong balls, and gave them to Cinder. As she closed the chest, Cinder looked up at her best friend with a knowing smile and said, "Damn girl, you were not kidding when you said you have over 30 years worth of dust in there. With the size of these dust crystals, I'll only need 6 of them." As she resealed the chest and unfolded the scroll to reveal the kanji for Earth, Nanami said, "Just keep those other 6 as backup then, I still have plenty more as you can clearly see. A medium-sized black marble chest with leather straps and silver buckles to keep it in place materialized after she repeated the steps. In order to place the scroll and her stuffed fox back in her backpack, she undid the buckles, took out roughly 6 earth dust crystals, closed it, sealed it again, and rolled it shut. While Cinder adds her own fire dust crystals to her dress, she slowly got back up, looked down at her belts, and opened the pouches containing the revered dust crystals. Sasuke asked, staring at the two girls as though they had gone insane, "You really want us to believe that those dust crystals of yours are going to make a land bridge for us to cross?" Sakura chimed in, "Yeah, Sasuke-kun is right. You two are nuts." However, the girls chose to ignore them because their insults and incredulity had no bearing on the two huntresses' resolve. Nanami smiled at Cinder and signaled for her to be her guest. "Okay, we have all that we need. I guess it's time to put on a show. I will go first if you don't mind, Cinder," Nanami asked. Nanami slammed her fist into the ground, activating both of her belt's dials and focusing her aura with a flick of her right wrist. The combined shockwave caused vines to grow extremely quickly and started to form a vine bridge that stretched all the way to the opposite side of the shore. When it was Cinder's turn, she simply threw out her left hand, and flames from her dust-infused dress erupted from her palm and spread across the vine bridge, creating a walkway made of obsidian glass and further fortifying it with the vines. When it was finished, Emerald and Mercury approached the vine and glass bridge and tested it by stepping on it. As she started to cross the bridge with Mercury following, Emerald remarked, "Well, you two have outdone yourselves once again." In the interim, Chizuna and the Genin team stood there stunned, unable to believe they had succeeded. As Cinder stalked off to the opposite shore, Nanami asked, "Well, are you guys coming? Are you going to stay there looking like idiots?" Chizuna and the others fell soon after, still in shock, but Kakashi was the first to awaken from his daze and start walking across with a smile on his face. At last, Ruby and Nanami trailed closely behind the group, flanking each other. With stars in her eyes, Ruby exclaimed, "Nanami-sensei, this is so amazing. I really want to learn how to do things like this as well." When they eventually jumped off the bridge and crossed over the other side, Nanami simply laughed at her protege's excitement. She informed the younger girl, "I'll be happy to teach you, little Rose, but only after the mission." Chizuna's expression of disbelief persisted as he said, "I just can't believe my eyes. This bridge you two built is a marvel. In all my years as a bridge gilder, I've never seen anything like this." As the bridge gradually sank into the sea, he asked the girls, "Could your dust make something like that permanent?" Nanami looked from the ocean to the elderly man and said, "I'm not sure. I'll have to ask my dad when we return home." Cinder glanced at the others and said, "I believe Professor Ozpin once stated something like that could be nearly permanent, but you would have to have a constant flow of dust and aura into the object for it to stay solid and stable." But then, when Sakura yelled, How in the hell are you able to make things that strong out of those damn crystals?" Everyone covered their ears and turned to face the Pinkett Banshee. Mercury turned his attention to the silver-haired Jonin and said, "Great dumbass, now the enemy knows we are coming for sure." He informed the older man, "I firmly believe you ought to remove her from the ninja program. Damn girl is too noisy." Kakashi was extremely embarrassed as he looked at Sakura because he had never led or been a part of a ninja team with a member who acted like his two students did. He turned his lone gray eye to his two students and said, "They represent Konoha and their fellow ninjas while out on missions for Kami's sake, and all they are doing is insulting others, acting so arrogant their head could swell like a balloon, or think of anything else but the mission at hand. Well, this ends now." The eye's color had darkened, giving the impression that a storm was brewing. He told his two students, "Sakura, Sasuke, your actions today have proven to me that you two are not ready to be full-fledged shinobi. When a team is working with an allied country or village, you must show them the utmost respect. Also, Nanami is the daughter of the leader of her village, in way she is royalty among the noble clans, and if she feels like it she can report this to her father and the third Hokage. If that happens we will have an international incident among both villages and cause a war. Is that what you two want?" "A war," he said in a voice that was strong and contained a certain amount of anger. Then he turned to talk to Nanami. He apologized and gave her a sincere smile, saying, "Forgive my students, Nanami-chan, they are young and don't know any better." Mercury snickered as Nanami turned to face the two genin, who were pale as she listened to them converse. "Oh please, don't worry so much. I have dealt with the worst, and my father believes I am able to handle my own battles. But, it is true in what you say though. I could go running to my father and we could go to war over those two acting so childish, but I believe in more diplomatic ways of handling things, and no, I am not talking about those foolish political marriages or hostages to ensure peace. He snickered more and said, anyway, if Nanami and Duck Butt here were to marry, she would eat him alive. Emerald slapped him behind the head for this. Emerald was staring at him when he said, ouch. What was that for? Emerald turned away from Merc and growled, really Merc, don't you ever know when to shut up? In other places, a troll-like man with a torch was standing at the entrance of a pitch-black cavern close to the island's eastern coast. Hello, he shouted into the cave's dark depths. The voice said, hello Gato. It was so cold that it could chill even the most courageous men. In the black abyss, Gato stood. Was it really necessary for me to come here? He asked himself this question. The cold voice said, don't worry little man, just tell me why you have come to my domain. I came to you to ensure that the bridge builder Tizuna dies. The nuke nins I have hired so far have shown no promise, and I want this done right, and who better for this job than the true demon of the mist? Gato replied. In other places, a man stood smiling off to the shadows in the tree lines, watching the group slowly make their way to the lake where he would set his trap. You would think that with copycat Kakashi, he would have sensed me by now, but those idiots still haven't. However, there's something unique about that blonde girl over there. With a sly smile, the man thought, she is strong and would make an excellent addition as an apprentice. A young man in a hunter nin mask stood off to his side, observing the group as they moved slowly forward. Along with the team, Ruby was staring at Sakura and Sasuke because she hadn't noticed anything particularly remarkable about these ninjas yet. The young huntress thought, I have far better fighting and speed skills than these two. They must have cheated on their ninja entrance exams. How else can a crazy fangirl like her and an emo like him become ninjas with so little skills? Then someone from her right put a hand on her shoulder. It was Nanami, who gave her a gentle smile. Don't let those two distract you from what needs to be done, Ruby. In a ninja career, those who are weak are first to fall, but those who overcome their weaknesses rise and shine bright in their lifetime. She said to Ruby. I know Nanami-sensei, but it's just so hard to believe that ninjas like them even made it past their exam. If any of us hunters acted like them, Professor Ozpin would have stripped us of our ranking and sent back to Beacon Academy. They seem to not understand the importance of teamwork, said Ruby as she gazed up at Narumi with a scowl on her face. From behind them, after hearing this, Kakashi was taken aback by the two teenage girls, who both spoke like seasoned professionals in their fields despite their young ages. He addressed the two huntresses from behind, saying, I have been trying to stress to my team the importance of teamwork, but as you can tell they haven't really grasped the concept as working as one. In the interim, Sakura became agitated while listening in on the three of them. How is it possible for Sensei to say that about our team? The Pinkett was lost in her thoughts about Sasuke when she said, Sasuke-kun works well with us. Returning with the girls and Kakashi, Ruby scowled at Kakashi's words. If they haven't grasped the concept yet, then why allow them out of the village? Don't you know that in their current state, they could get killed, he replied. Kakashi sighed, closed his lone eye, and turned to face the young huntress. They have completed the set amount of D-rank missions to be allowed onto a C-rank mission. But before you say anything, the rank of this mission has already shot up to an A-rank mission and could still change with who we may face next. He said. This brought Sakura out of her head. The Pinkett asked, Kakashi-sensei, could it really change again? The Pinkett was glared at by Mercury, who said, don't be stupid girl. It will change again. How on earth you became a ninja is beside me. But you can't continue to live this life only wearing rose-colored glasses, thinking nothing bad or evil will ever happen as a ninja. Hell is a huntsman, I know better, and we worked hard to become stronger and work as a team. Teamwork is the key to make it out alive, he stated to Sakura. In the interim, walking beside Cinder, Sasuke clenched his teeth into a fist. Cinder smirked and started laughing at the final Uchida, indicating that she heard him whisper, that fool knows nothing about being strong. Teammates only make you weaker and drag you down. As Cinder stepped away from the boy and approached Tizuna, she said, wow, I thought Pinky there was living in La La Land, but I was gravely mistaken, it's you who is the fool boy. Knowing your strengths and weaknesses isn't enough. A teammate helps their teammates overcome their weaknesses and even help the other become stronger. That hate that lies in your heart and soul will only make you weaker. Tizuna remained silent the entire time and simply stared at his sake bottle. He wanted another drink but was still too scared to even attempt taking one. so he put it in his bag and took out a bottle of water, hoping that would quench his thirst until they arrived at his house. As they approached their destination, a mist started to form. Since it was still early in the morning, nobody gave it much attention at first, but as the mist grew thicker, Team 7 and Nanami realized that it was laced with chakra. Damn it! At that moment, Nanami heard a swishing sound in the air as she looked around, barely able to see her teammates. Stay down. Keep quiet, old man, Cinder said as they all heard metal strike wood, while Kakashi yelled as he pulled Nanami and Ruby down and Cinder pulled Tazuna down. What do we have here? My. A deep, gravelly voice spoke up. Kakashi said, Team 7, surround Tazuna. Nanami stood up and glared at the tree, saying, Ruby, go provide backup for Team 7, Emerald, go with her. The mist had gradually cleared, allowing you to see your own hand in front of your face. Ruby and Emerald said, hi, simultaneously, then pulled out their weapons and stood watch with Team 7 to keep the elderly man safe. As Mercury and Cinder stood behind her, Nanami took a step forward. She pulled out the legal documents and scroll from her own storage scroll and told him, Zabuza Momochi, I have been sent here with a request of the Lord of Water Country to ask for your return to Kiri and face punishment for your crimes. And what makes you think I would listen to that old fool? Zabuza said, laughing at the young blonde girl. He questioned her. Nanami glared at the half-dressed man and said, because his messenger went to all the trouble to come to my village and ask the huntsman to track down one of his country's ninjas. He is most likely a water user, so I will have to stick with ice dust, maybe some gravity dust too, she thought as she tried to think of a strategy. Kakashi gave the blonde adolescent a startled look. You have been tasked with returning an A- rank, almost S-rank nuke nin back to the land of water by the Lord of Water. Asked the man. Well girlie, I don't think I'll be returning anytime soon. I had my reasons to do what I did. Zabuza replied. Nanami gives him a stern look because of her new moniker. I know you tried killing the Mizukage for starting the bloodline wars with the clans and civilian-born ninjas, also the Mizukage is the keeper of the three-tailed beast, but what I don't understand is what made you attack your friend in the first place, instead of just sitting down with him and convinced to stop the war instead. She told the missing nin. Everyone in the vicinity fell silent as a result. Zabuza's friendship with the Mizukage was not widely known. He had kept that to himself out of concern that someone might use it against him. Blondie, you don't know what you are talking about. Why don't you go back home to your village of huntsmen and play with your dust and hunt your demons? Zabuza replied. Cinder and Mercury exchanged a knowing glance. Nanami was usually irritated by being treated like a defenseless child. A burst of bluish-purple chakra surrounded the girl, and Cinder retreated a few steps. Nanami asked, would you like to rephrase that? Kakashi was reminded of Kushina when someone irritated her and how her chakra would change to the same visible color as the one in front of him. Then he saw Nanami turn her upper belt's dial to ice dust. She told him, fine Zabuza, I'll take you in by force. Zabuza grinned broadly as he gazed at the girl. This sure will be fun, and after I kick your ass, you're going to join me and become one of my apprentices, Blondie. Zabuza replied. A katana blade started to form in Nanami's hand as she grinned at the man with the bandage and said, if you say so Momochi, but I will make you work for it. To give the weapon additional charge, she infused some of her chakra into the solid ice blade. In order to free his blade from the tree, Zabuza leapt down from it and grabbed the handle. With a dark smile in his eyes, he told her, that's okay with me, Blondie. By the end of this, you'll be calling me Zabuza-sensei. Kakashi stepped forward beside the young huntress and said, Nanami, you're going to need help going up against him. He's a high-class missing nin and he almost killed a cage. What makes you think you can do it all on your own? He said to her, I will help you in this fight. Nanami turned to face the ninja in the mask beside her. She had to think quickly and come up with a plan of action because she dodged the missing nin's blade and countered with her own ice blade, pushing back the sword and dodging to the man's left side. Her only thought was, will he help me or will he just be in my way? She made eye contact with Cinder while performing a backflip from one of Zabuza's swings. Girl, are you really going to do this by yourself? As Cinder watched her best friend embark on a battle unlike any she had ever encountered, she thought, we are here to help you all the way. Nanami smiled at Cinder when she saw her best friend's face. As she hit the ground and stomped her foot down, turning the surrounding ground to ice, she thought to herself, I hope she won't be too mad at me for this. She teased him, so Zabuza, how's your ice walking skills? Really Blondie, is this the best you can do? Taunted Zabuza as the nuke nin cautiously and slowly stepped onto the ice, a peculiar gleam in his eyes. He turned to Kakashi and thought, I need her to slip up, so I can knock her out and hand her off to Haku. But first, I have to get him out of the picture. At that thought, a sly smile appeared beneath the bandages covering his mouth. The white-haired Jonin stiffened at this smile with Kakashi. Could he simply aim for a silent murder? As he took out a kunai to fight with, he thought to himself. Nanami turned to face Kakashi. She grinned and said, you might want to hang back and let me handle this, Kakashi. He went wide-eyed for a half-second when she smiled at him. He thought he saw his sensei standing behind this young blonde girl just now. Sensei. Kakashi shook the idea from his mind and whispered. He glanced back at the young huntress and thought, no, I can't let personal feelings get in the way of this mission. Kakashi asked, are you sure you can handle this, Nanami? She continued to smile at him while waving her hand. She turned to Zabuza and said, yeah, no worries, I got this. It isn't like Mr. Mumu here is the first missing nin I've gone after. She thought, I just hope I can just get that sword away from him. Mr. Mumu now, then you should be calling me Mumu-sensei. He replied to her. There was a laugh coming from the forest. However, the mist had thickened once more, so nobody knew where it was coming from. Nanami dismissed it, speculating that it might have been one of the genin or mercury. She tightened her grip on her ice blade, moved her left hand over the secondary belt, and turned the dial to the purple gravitational dust. She then kicked off the ground, leaving a burst of purple in her wake as she slid across the ice, swinging her blade at Zabuza, who blocked her with his own sword. Making Nanami grin as she slid under his legs and swinging up with a right hook into his groin. With a gasp, Zabuza sank slightly, but Nanami quickly turned around and leapt back up, using his sword to keep himself upright. Zabuza got back up and glared at her, saying, that was a low blow there, Blondie. He growled at the girl as she said, well, it worked, but not how I wanted it to. The other men in the group cringed in pain as they covered their manhood. Nanami grinned foxily and said, whatever, I was hoping to make you cry, but it seems I'll have to hit you harder next time. Zabuza thought, this girl is too unpredictable for my liking, as he raised his powerful blade once more and forced himself to glide across the ice. As Zabuza struck her with his powerful blade, Nanami swiftly formed a second ice blade. Her first blade broke from the force of his blow, and the second one barely saved her by a few inches. As she stared at the blade inches from her face, Nanami's eyes widened, and she stomped her foot down and spun her secondary dial to red dust without thinking, then kicked it upwards to Zabuza's stomach with her left boot engulfed in flames. Despite still having some burns on his stomach from the red mark her boot left on his abs, Zabuza leapt back, making Nanami smile. Can't stand the heat, Mumu-sensei. Made fun of the girl with blonde hair. Zabuza narrowed his eyes at her and said, you got a lucky shot in there, Blondie, but you will not be getting many more. This girl is using ice and now fire. How many elements is she able to control? Then there was that strange purple dust left in her wake as she came at me. I will have to pull out all the stops with her, he thought to himself as he started to laugh slowly. I haven't felt this alive in years. The young ninja asked, has he truly lost his mind battling this girl? As he saw his master in the shadows and began to perspire. Nanami, you can do this. Cinder grinned at the attack her best friend had used, the same one she had used against her during training not too long ago. Don't lose sight of the end goal. Ruby turned to face the older girl as Cinder yelled, can she really do this, Cinder? From her place in the Tizuna protection circle, Ruby yelled, you know she can. This girl can do the impossible when push comes to shove. Cinder turned to face the girl and smiled, and you could hear the fear in her voice as she shouted back at Ruby with pride. A long, thin mirror of ice formed behind Tizuna while everyone was preoccupied with the battle in front of them. A figure slowly emerged from the ice mirror, making sure not to make any noise as he raised his hand to grab the back of the bridge builder's shirt. However, before anyone could realize what was happening, Mercury leapt into the air and delivered a powerful axe kick behind the old man, forcing the masked figure to jump away from Mercury and directly into Cinder's line of sight. Has no one ever warned you that approaching someone from behind isn't polite? As Cinder glared at the genin observing the man, Mercury asked, smiling at the masked boy, you know, it's dangerous to let your guard down when in battle, right? This man isn't the type to travel alone, Cinder said, glaring at the masked figure. I know you're not fighting. The masked figure raised his hand with Senbon between his fingers and said, Well, it appears I will not be taking the old man without a fight. In the interim, standing beside Cinder, Emerald prepared to fight, saying, I'm sure we can make quick work out of him. She informed her friend and teammate, no, you stay with those, Jenin, and keep an eye on the elderly man. Ruby and you are our fallback if he manages to get past us. Emerald crossed her arms and walked back with the others, saying, fine, have all the fun and make me babysit. Tazuna was shocked that the young ninjas didn't sense this other ninja, but he was also thankful to Mercury for saving him just now. You okay, old man? She asked, but all he could do was nod. Sasuke scowled at Cinder at her remark. What is she aware of? Oh, Sakura looked like she was going to wet herself out of sheer fear, he thought. As Ruby examined them, she thought, these kids are not ready for this. Mercury cracked his knuckles and smiled. He turned to face Cinder, who merely rolled her eyes at him, and remarked, it's been a while since I've been in a decent fight. She saw him frown at the recollection and said, well, whose fault was it that we couldn't join Nana on her last mission? Mercury turned back to the phony hunter Nin and said, shut up, Cinder, you don't have to keep reminding me. The boy behind the mask arched an eyebrow at the fact that these two fought but appeared to be close friends. However, he chose to give it some thought later and prepared for battle by slowly slipping into his taijutsu stance. The gray-haired boy was quite agile, and his legs had an odd feel to them as they brushed past him after the axe kick, as though they were composed of materials other than flesh and bone. He asked the two people in front of him, then shall we? Cinder's taijutsu wasn't the best in the group, but she always made up for it by adding a little kick to her punch. She grinned and clasped her hands together as flames covered her gloves and the yellow Chinese patterns on her dress. She asked the masked figure in front of her, shall we dance? Mercury kicked up his leg as the needles struck and hit the ground after the figure threw his senbon at the two. The boy wasn't sure, but they sounded like they hit metal. He dodged, but some of the flame caught the wooden mask, setting it on fire. Cinder smiled as she collected fire dust into a fireball the size of a basketball and hurled it at the figure's face. When the figure took off his mask and hurled it at the two, Mercury launched a spin kick at him, shattering the mask into tiny, flaming fragments. At the creepy cave in the meantime, gazing around him, Gato stood in the middle of the room. Slowly, a tall, massive figure emerged from the deepest shadows to confront the small troll. With his yellow eyes glowing from the torch next to Gato, the demon said, Gato, you have a deal. But listen and listen well, if you think of ever double-crossing me, I will take your body and soul to the deepest depth of the ocean and leave you there for all eternity. His hair was green and seemed to contain seaweed, while his skin was a sickly pale blue. In front of the elderly businessman, his fingers had webs between them, and his nails looked like eel claws with tails that changed into legs. He had silver handcuffs on his arms and legs and was dressed in a toga. I, Aquarius, will do away with your hired men as well as that bridge builder, but I will not make my move until after the full moon. In 7 days, I shall kill your pest problem. He stated to Gato, now leave me, you little troll. Gato turned tail and fled for his dear, pitiful life without saying a word. 2 of his men were waiting for him outside by a boat when he emerged from the cave. As one of his thugs picked him up, put him on the boat, and pushed it off the shore, Gato growled, let's get the hell out of here. I need to get back to my mansion to see if that damn ninja has done his job. They vanished in a matter of minutes. Aquarius stood in the shadows inside the cave, gazing out at the sea. As he retreated deeper into the cave, he told himself, that little troll might try to double-cross me. But if he does, he will be dead before he has the chance. In the interim, Mercury lunged up with a sweep kick, knocking the boy to the ground as Cinder sidestepped a punch from the boy she was fighting. Cinder gave him a spin kick to the chest while flames licked at his cheek, causing him to think, this isn't good, I need to get them into my ice mirrors if I want a chance at taking them both out at once. This isn't good, Kakashi said, turning around after hearing a fight behind him and being startled to see another had broken out behind Tazuna. As he refocused on Nanami, he thought, we have to finish this quickly before more arrive. With her boot covered in flames, the girl met Zabuza's left cheek as if she were walking on thin air. She and Cinder seemed to be thinking the same thing. Zabuza landed in the middle of the lake after flying back into it. As his bandages burned off from that last blow, he slowly raised his hand to his face and gave the girl a shark-like smile. He told her, damn blondie, you have a pretty strong kick. Nanami grinned and said, I have to, it's the only way to make sure I scare away any previes that try to take advantage of me. She wouldn't tell anyone, but she was having a great time. Nuke Nin had really challenged her, and she was starting to feel a strange energy in her stomach. Zabuza bowed to her mockingly and said, "Well then Blondie, shall we continue?" Nanami grinned and grabbed both sides of her skirt, curtsying to him. I would like that. In his entire ninja career, Kakashi had never witnessed or heard of anything like this occurring in combat, so he and the other spectators were just sweating over the two's antics. As he observed, he thought, this girl is definitely different from the kunoichi from back home. Nanami stepped onto the water slowly. A little taken aback, Zabuza remarked, I didn't know you huntsmen could use chakra. With her boots still hot from the previous attack, Nanami asked, well, who said I was your average huntress? As the stream gradually rose from beneath her foot with each step. She didn't feel like taking a cold plunge anytime soon, so she stood motionless for a brief moment to let her chakra and aura balance each other out. However, Kakashi approached the girl gradually. She turned to face him, and strangely, her eyes flashed violet as she grinned at him. Nanami, let me take over. Zabuza uses water nature chakra and he is stronger here on the lake. No, he is mine to deal with. My team was contracted to hunt him down and make sure he was returned to the Lord of Water. I've got this Kakashi, just make sure everyone's alright and back up those two over there up if they need it. But if it comes down to it, I will ask for help if push comes to shove, said Nanami as she returned to Zabuza. Causing him to smile at her. Hey Blondie, after this how about we go out on a date? I've never faced a woman quit like you before, he replied with a smirk. She grinned mockingly and said, tempting offer, but no thanks Zabuza, I got other plans for this evening. With a flame-shaped whip in her hands, she continued, you see, I have to train another to be as good as me and make sure her team is as strong as my friends and teammates. But I'm sure there are other women out there just dying to have you take them out. With an even bigger grin, Zabuza put his sword on his back and started making various hand gestures. He opened his mouth to shoot water-based bullets at the girl after yelling, water release, water bullets. Nanami grinned as she did a backflip and turned her flaming whip into a giant fan and used it to block the bullets she was unable to dodge, getting a steam bath in the process as well. Not bad Blondie, Zabuza told her. Nanami grinned and flipped her other dial to her earth dust and slammed her right hand over her fan, making vines grow over it as Zabuza watched this happen. This girl is using another element. Why does she constantly tamper with her belt? He reflected to himself. Since ninjas from Kiri rarely encountered huntsmen, they essentially knew very little about them. All they really understood was that they were not like your average shinobi. Using both hands, Nanami swung her enormous battle fan made of glass and vines at the Nuke Nin, taking advantage of his moment of confusion. The vines launched themselves at him, encircling his body tightly. Flames escaped from the fan and spread through the vines to Zabuza, where they burned him, preventing him from moving his arms or legs. Zabuza concentrated chakra around his body at the last minute to help shield it, if only slightly. Ah, damn it, Blondie, that hurts, Zabuza growled in a deep, solemn voice. This pulled Haku away from his altercation with the other two hunters. Zabuza, as a huge ice mirror materialized behind the boy, Haku yelled, I'm sorry but we will meet again. He stepped back and disappeared inside the mirror, missing Cinder and Mercury's combined attack that shattered the mirror in front of them. Another ice mirror formed as Nanami charged at Zabuza's burned and down body, and the phony hunter ninja emerged. Zabuza-sama, I'm afraid it is time to leave. The voice behind the mask said, bending down to place a hand on Zabuza's shoulder before disappearing in a whirlpool of water. Nanami froze in her tracks and snarled, gosh. She turned to the others and whimpered, I was having so much fun. Kakashi, meanwhile, was stunned because he had never witnessed someone defeat a ninja of that caliber with such ease without exerting any effort or giving in to fear. Damn it, not good I lost him, Nanami thought as she walked back to the shoreline. Now how am I going to tell Dad I screwed up? Do I tell him that I allowed my ego to get in the way after I saw how Zabuza was and wanted to test myself against a ninja of his level? She thought to herself. At that moment, she started to feel a little lightheaded. Cinder noticed this and ran to her best friend, saying, Nana it's okay, I got you. She closed her eyes and her breathing was steady, and it seemed she had overdone with her chakra and aura. I'll carry her on my back for you, Kakashi said as he approached the two girls. He told her, it seemed like you and the other guy went all out in your fight with the masked kid. His eyes smiled at her. You know, That smile of yours is kind of creepy, but you are right, we did overdo it a little in our own battle, Cinder said, helping to put Nanami on his back. Kakashi scowled at her remark about his smiling eye. Tazuna then approached them and said, your team and they are welcome to stay at my house. As they followed the elderly drunk to his home, he said, I am thankful to this girl and her team for protecting my life, and I know that little troll Gato will not stop sending others after me. Inside the mindscape of Nanami. The young huntress mindscape consisted of a lovely meadow, a small wooded area, and a cave in the center of the wooded area. Nanami was lying on her back when she slowly opened her eyes to a male voice that sounded grave. Oi, brat, wake up. Huh, who's there? My head is killing me, Nanami complained as she slowly sat up, put a hand to her head, and quickly closed her eyes. The voice emanating from the cave said, brat, shut up and come over here. After regaining her equilibrium, Nanami slowly got to her feet and walked toward the cave. Where am I? She looked around and remarked, I've never seen this place before. You could hear the sarcasm in every word as the voice said, you wouldn't know this place for we are inside your head, moron. All right, so why in the hell are we inside my head? She inquired with a hint of annoyance. Because some idiot, who will not be identified, went overboard once more. Fighting a bandaged freak of nature required her to expend all of her chakra and aura. As she approached the cave and noticed wooden bars in front of it with a kanji for seal in the middle of the bars on a small piece of paper, the voice exclaimed. With a proud smile, Nanami crossed her arms over her chest and said, well, I couldn't help it if I like a challenge, anyway I contest my skill is great. You nearly killed yourself today while battling that man, brat. Because you truly exhausted your chakra and aura, and I know your parents warned you not to do that, you were fortunate that I gave you some of my chakra to keep you alive, the voice growled. I didn't know, Nanami said as she collapsed to the ground and peered into the cave. Maybe I should have had Kakashi help me, she said, lowering her head. I thought I was fine. Yes, you should have allowed the son of the White Fang help your sorry ass. The voice said. Nanami saw two glowing red eyes staring back at her through the cave's darkness. You usually step in when I'm overdoing it, she said, slowly getting to her feet and glaring back at the red eyes. Why didn't you say anything to Furball this time? As she approached the closed cage doors, she inquired. As the eyes moved away from her and two orange-red tails slipped through the cage door's bars, she was met with a brief period of silence. Because the Fang's son could have sensed my presence and could have turned on you, she explained. The fox growled as its tails wrapped around the girl, who felt his energy slowly seeping into her and slowly falling back to sleep. She will be the death of me, he thought, wrapping his 7 other tails around himself and falling asleep. Remember, brat, I'm not very well liked by his village and I'm stuck in you and must keep you alive till I am able to get the hell out of you. Return to the others. Nanami's blonde bangs revealed her face as she appeared to be talking in her sleep, and she barricaded her face into Kakashi's vest, saying, I didn't mean to. Cinder simply laughed at the antics of her team leader and best friend, and she was helpless when she was unconscious. Kakashi carried Nanami on his back as they passed the edge of the village and saw a portion of the bridge. Mercury, however, said, dude, your Genin squad is terrible. Professor Ozpin would have simply kept them at Beacon longer if they had been at home. They don't understand the concept of teamwork and are generally terrible as ninjas, he said, laughing heartily as he gazed at the girl with the pink hair. Although the girl on his back isn't typical, there is something uncanny and familiar about her that he couldn't explain. Kakashi didn't say much, instead focusing on his thoughts about what he had witnessed today. In the interim, after hearing what Mercury had said about his team, Sasuke was glaring at the boy so intensely that he thought his eyes might burst. What the hell do you know about what an elite ninja is? Hunter, you're just a weakling who couldn't be a real ninja. Sasuke stopped walking and assumed a fighting stance in front of the young huntsman, demanding, if you are really that strong as you claim to be, then prove it and fight me. This challenge caused Mercury to slowly grin. What do I have to prove to an elite ninja, like yourself? What? I only saw that you nearly urinated on your pants from all that bandage. No brows key back there against that missing nin. If that's what a real, elite ninja, is, then I'm not grateful. He smirked at the duck-ass emo and said to Sasuke, I will always be a hunter. Be kind to the others, Mercury. Cinder smirked at him and Sasuke and said, it will be too troublesome to have them cry to Nana about you being your oh so charming self. Kakashi was watching the young hunters interact with his team when he thought, yeah, this isn't going to end well, but he was interrupted by sounds coming from behind him. He could smell the scent of cinnamon and fire coming from Nana as she pressed her face against his John vest and said, Mom, 5 more minutes please. This girl isn't like the others, there is something very different about her, I can feel it, something that will rock this world. Maybe even change it for the better, he thought to himself before turning back to the group. My house is just around the corner past this little wooded area, there you can stay with us, he said, slowly closing his eyes as he raised his sake bottle to take a long swig of the alcoholic beverage. Tazuna looked at the path ahead and said, my daughter is a fantastic cook, and my grandson would love to meet the ninjas and hunters that are going to help free us from Gato. As he said that, they turned the corner and came to a small wooded area where, as he had mentioned, the outline of a house's roof could be seen close to the tree lines. After they had stopped, Cinder bowed to the elderly bridge builder and said, thank you for allowing us to stay with you as well, Tazuna-san. Don't give it much thought, lol. What you have done for me, this team, and Blondie here is what I could do in return. Tazuna motioned to Nana, who was now snoring, saying, I just can't let you look for a hotel or camp out there with her in that kind of condition. Everyone started to perspire as they noticed a tiny bubble emerging from her nose. She is their team leader, Sakura thought, frowning at the blonde girl, while Sai simply grinned eerily at the others and remarked, it will be a pleasure to be housemates with all of you. Nana muttered, seal the creepy pale thing, which caused her teammates to giggle. As he peered over his shoulder with one eye, Kakashi thought, she smells nice. Mom's ramen is apparently part of my diet, he said. With a faint smile, Kakashi recalled the line he had heard Kushina use on Minato-sensei during her pregnancy with their daughter. I don't like eating veggies unless it's in my ramen. Nana muttered, causing Kakashi to perspire. Who is this girl? Why do I feel like I know her somehow? Kakashi sighs as he looks off into the distance. Cinder, to his right, noticed the longing expression in Kakashi's eyes and wondered what he was thinking as he occasionally glanced over his shoulder. What is going through your mind, Kakashi-san? She thought to herself, thinking that perhaps after they are settled in, they could have a nice long talk over some tea. I am not weak. You are the damn weak one, you fool. I am an Avenger and I am the elite of all the ninjas back in the leaf, Sasuke thought, smirking at his own thoughts. I am not weak. He would show this freak who was at the top of the food chain. As the small group approached the 2-story, brown, and rather large house with its own private lake and dock, it had a very lovely backdrop. A woman with long black hair pulled back in a ponytail, dressed in shorts and a plain t-shirt, stood at the doorway with 2 large baskets next to it, one filled with fresh fruit and vegetables and the other with fresh fish from the lake next to the house. She looked as though she had been gardening and checking the fish traps. When his daughter looked up from her baskets to see her father with ninjas and a few other people, including a blonde girl who appeared to be in pain and was clinging to the back of the silver-haired ninja, Tazuna said, hey. Her focus was primarily on the elderly man. Father, is that you? Asked the young lady, who was crying with happiness. Who else might it be? The last I knew, I was the only town drunk, Tazuna jokingly remarked to his daughter, who ran to embrace him while still sobbing. I'm very proud of your back. For Cammy's safe return home, I have been praying. However, why didn't you notify me that you were still alive and well from the Hidden Leaf Village, Dad? As she stopped crying and began reprimanding her father in front of the others, the young woman was asked. Well, you see Tsunami, I had planned to send word, but... Tazuna trailed off when he heard Nanami mumbling something no one could understand. First we need to get this girl somewhere to rest, he said, chuckling and rubbing his hand sheepishly behind his head. He turned to face the girl on Kakashi's back and said to his daughter, she was the one who kept me alive this whole time. Simply grinning at the young lady, Kakashi said, I would greatly appreciate it if I could put her down somewhere safe. Oh my, is she okay? Should I summon the town healer? As she hurried over to the sleeping girl, Tsunami asked. No, Nana will be fine. From behind Kakashi, Cinder grinned and said, she just overdid it in battle again. Once she has had some rest, she will be okay. He turned and walked up the stairs into the house, ignoring the others and withdrawing into his own little world of brooding. Sasuke said, glaring at the sleeping blonde. I need to get stronger. I will test myself against her. After Tsunami entered with Kakashi and Nanami following, the others followed suit. Leave me up the stairs, and I'll show you all where you're going to stay at, Tsunami said. They followed her to the very end of the hallways, where they saw a red door with a fox carved into it. The fox, oddly enough, had 9 tails waving around it, which made Kakashi raise an eyebrow at the design but say nothing to it. She opened the door and stepped through the threshold, then led Kakashi to a large bed under a large bay window. "Lay her here and I'll be back with some medical supplies and some hot water to clean her up while she rests," Tsunami said before leaving the room. Shortly after her departure, Sakura entered the room, moved to the far corner away from the other girls, and set her pack down on the bed. "Where are your packs?" she asked the other girls, who gave her a strange look. Nanami-sensei has sealed them into the scrolls in her pouch." Ruby-eyed Sakura, uncertain of this girl, and demanded the Pinkett, how the hell does she even know a ninja skill? As he turned back to examine the sleeping girl's face, Kakashi finally turned to face the other people in the room and whispered, "Shush." Sakura. Cinder, meanwhile, approached Nana's bed and sat down directly beside him. Kakashi glanced back at Nana and then back at the other girl before running his right hand through his hair. "Kakashi-san, I can take over from here if you would like to get some rest. She will be out for another couple of hours and I don't want you to be too tired yourself," she said to the Jonin. He got up and went to the door, where he saw Tsunami coming back with everything she needed for Nanami. "Yeah, I guess you're right. I should wash up as well. Nanami did drooled all over me after all." She gave him a smile before approaching Nanami's bed and setting a bowl with various rages, bandages, and other supplies on the floor in front of the bed. He bowed his head in gratitude as she said, "The bathroom is next to the blue door that leads to your room, Kakashi-san." He then disappeared from the room and headed directly to the restroom. After entering the doorway and closing it, he slid down the door with his back against it. Is she their daughter? Which last name did she go by? As he searched his mind for the solution, he thought. When the answer finally dawns on him, his eyes widen. He muttered, "Nanami Uzumaki Namikaze." Without giving it any thought, Kakashi started flying through hand signals and bit his right thumb, leaving blood on it. He then slammed his hand on the ground, and a small tan pug appeared in a cloud of smoke. The pug said, "Yo." He gave the pug a scroll and said, "Yo Pakun, I need you to take this message to the Hokage." Pakun said, "Okay, pup, I'll get it to the old monkey." He said to his summons, "Thank you Pakun." The Hidden Leaf Village. The third Hokage sat at his desk and gazed at the pile of documents in front of him. "Minato, damn you, that fateful night, why didn't you let me take your place?" He asked himself as he was thinking, but he was interrupted when a tiny puff of smoke appeared on his desk. When the smoke had subsided, a tiny tan pug wearing a leaf headband emerged. Placing the scroll in front of the elderly leader, Pakun said, "Yo, old monkey. The pup has urgent news for you." Sarutobi gave the pug a narrowed look. When he picked up the scroll and unrolled it, he said to the pug, "Thank you, Pakun. You might want to wait, for I might have a reply for Kakashi." He initially believed it was related to the mission and that Kakashi might have been asking for backup, but after reading what he did, he became pale and furious with Ozpin. Sarutobi slammed his fist against the table and yelled, "That bastard lied to me." Just as Team Guy entered the room. With a hint of fear in his stomach, Guy gazed at his commander and leader, wondering what was causing the elderly Cage to become so enraged. Then Sarutobi glanced up at the newly arrived team. As Jiraiya emerged from the windows to the left of the Hokage's desk, the elderly leader exclaimed, "Guy. You and your team along with Jiraiya will be heading to Wave. You are to back up Kakashi and his team against the Nuke Nin Zabuza Momochi. Also get me intel on the hunters that are there as well to hunt the Nuke Nin." Jiraiya looked at his old sensei and asked, "What's up sensei?" Sarutobi focused on his former pupil, saying, "Your goddaughter lives," with emphasis. Jiraiya retreated a few paces and turned pale, as though someone had just stepped on his grave. The Sannin took the scroll from his sensei and turned to face the pug. "Guy, get your team and meet me at the south gates in 20 minutes. Now go," he yelled. He questioned the small dog, "Is it true?" Pakun looked at the two men in front of him and said, "It might be pup. I haven't seen the girl yet, but I will tell the pup that a team is coming to aid on the mission." The third handed a scroll to the pug and said, "Take this with you to give to Kakashi and tell him not to speak word of this to the others. I do not want to tip our hand on this. If that is really Minato's daughter then Ozpin and Glinda have a lot to answer for." Pakun then took the scroll and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya stated, "I'm going to kill him sensei. He should have never kept her form her only family." While examining the picture of Minato that was displayed on the wall, He walked to the window and said, I better get going. There is no time for research with what has just happened, and I need to send word to another. However, Sarutobi's voice stopped him before he could leave, and he turned to face his old sensei. He saw a scroll flying towards him and caught it in midair before examining it and raising an eyebrow at the elderly man. Have her put blood on the seal, and, if she is his daughter, this will open the scroll, he said. The old man's heart ached to learn the truth, and now that he had some information indicating the girl lives, his heart had lightened a little with hope. I will wait on sending her mother's scroll for now. I have to know for sure, he said, a tear streaming down his cheek. That night had weighed heavily on his heart and soul for so many years, never knowing if the child lived or died along with her father and mother. As he turned on the shower, Kakashi had finally removed his shirt and his Jonin vest. He threw his mask and forehead protection into the sink and slowly kicked off his sandals, pants, and boxers. Steam started to fill the bathroom. As he entered the shower, he lost himself in the world and gradually relaxed for a brief moment. I need this, he told himself. Office of Ozpin. The image of his daughter cracking on his desk made the white-haired man feel cold. That's not good. With a feeling of dread in his stomach, he thought. He had no control over the storm that would follow, and something bad was about to happen. Tower of Hokage. The heads of the clans were summoned to the Hokage's office. He did not want the other idiots on the council or the elders to know what was going to happen. He let out a deep, weary sigh and looked each of the clan heads in the eyes as they gathered around his desk. Before I tell everyone what's going on, I have to emphasize this to all of you. He informed them that he rubbed his thumb across a seal on the left side of his desk while biting it and rubbing the tiny amount of blood that resulted from it. As swiftly as it appeared, the room glowed a gentle blue before gently fading. Lord Hokage, what is going on for you to use that seal? Shikaku Nara was asked. Observing the elderly leader, he arched a languid eyebrow. This goes back to the night of the Kyuubi attack and the deaths of one Minato Namikaze and one Kushina Uzumaki and their newborn daughter. As he watched everyone there look shocked and depressed, Sarutobi said. They died that night along with their daughter. Hiyashi Hyuga said as he approached the desk. Why bring up this old issue from so many years ago? We continue to engage in combat with those other idiots in order to prevent them from accessing the Namikaze compound and scrolls. He let out a growl. The aged leader got up and slammed his fist down on his desk in response. I bring this up because the girl is still alive. That night, she survived. Everyone in the room stepped back as he let out a growl. To verify that she is their daughter and to support Kakashi's team in the Land of Waves, I have dispatched Team Guy and Jiraiya. In addition, I'm going to accompany a few of you to go speak with Ozpin. Sarutobi remarked as he observed a number of people staring at him bewildered. I understand. Following the chaos and deaths of the fourth, his wife, and numerous others, he and his spouse swept the girl away that evening. Shikaku said. The home of Tazuna. When Pakun emerged in a cloud of smoke, Kakashi had already taken a shower and changed into his clothes. Hey, dog, the old monkey has told me, Pakun said, dropping the scroll and turning to face Kakashi. He quickly reached into his vest pocket for a dog treat and threw it to the little pug. He looked at the scroll. Do I need to open it? Should I continue to be ignorant? He picked up the scroll slowly and asked himself these questions. Pakun decided to wait and see what would happen. According to what the elderly monkey told the elderly toad, his only remaining connection to his former sensei is that girl. The pug thought to himself, I just wonder how he will take it. When the scroll hit the floor and Kakashi appeared as though someone had walked across his grave, Pakun was startled out of his reverie. His eye had gone glassy from the shock, and he was paler than usual. Live, was all he was able to extract. Yet the old toad will be here soon to test her and make sure she is truly their daughter pup. As Kakashi gathered himself, Pakun spoke. His back was leaning against the door, which was being pounded. Sensei Kakashi, are you nearly finished in there? Sakura's voice was called out. The door opened slowly, and Kakashi was standing there grinning. Yeah, Sakura, I'm finished. As he hurried past her and into the room reserved for him and the other male members of the two teams, he told the girl. Pakun trailed behind him as he moved to the bed in the corner and set his pack down. Mercury grinned when he saw the small ninja dog. Kakashi-sensei, where did you get the dog from? He inquired. As Kakashi was pulled out of his reverie once more, he asked. He noticed Pakun standing next to him when he looked down. I thought you went back. A little perplexed, he asked. Pakun smiled. No, dog, I'm interested in seeing how this intriguing situation develops. The little tan Nin-ken said. Mercury approached the ninja pug and knelt to examine him. You're kind of cute. As he extended his hand to scratch Pakun behind the ears, he spoke. I'm grateful. Yes, it feels good. As his left hind leg started to strike the hardwood floor, Pakun said. What will I do if she really is their daughter? Should I drag her back to the village, kicking and screaming, or let her go back to the only house she has ever known? As Kakashi observed the interactions between Mercury and Pakun, this idea kept coming to him. As the girl slowly started to stir, Tsunami cleaned Nanami up across the hall. What time is it? Her blue eyes fluttered open slowly as she asked. A woman with midnight blue hair and kind, compassionate eyes was staring down at her when she felt a warm cloth on her forehead. The young huntress received a smile from said woman. You're welcome back, my dear, everyone has been extremely concerned about you, she informed the adolescent girl. Cinder noticed her friend was awake when she turned from her bed. Nana, you gave us all a pretty good scare. The young fire huntress spoke. Nanami slowly got up on her elbows and glanced at the woman before, then at her friend, and finally back at the woman. Where am I? Who are you? Her expression was one of bewilderment as she asked. You are in our house. My name is Tsunami, and I am Tezuna's daughter. When you battled the missing nin who was after my father, it seemed that you were injured. The now named Tsunami said. She gave the young huntress a smile. Thank you for saving him. As she gently embraced the girl, she said. Nana returned the woman's hug with a smile. It didn't matter. I was merely trying to prevent Zabuza from making a grave error and doing what I could to keep your dad alive. She informed Tsunami. The older woman gave this a perplexed look. What do you mean? She inquired. My mission was to locate Zabuza and bring him back to the Kiri, where he can assist in putting an end to the bloodline conflicts. Nana said. The clans with bloodlines are fighting the current leaders' non-clan bloodlines. Things have gotten quite bad. A few weeks ago, I was on a mission close by, and the air was heavy with the smell of blood. However, in order to put an end to this war permanently, the rebel leader needs his assistance and expertise. Stretching, she spoke. Her entire body started to pop as she stretched. Tsunami gave the girl a look. She couldn't stop wondering what this little girl was capable of. She confronted one of the fabled 7 swordsmen and left without suffering any serious injuries. When she cleaned up the dry blood, she discovered no wounds and knew the blood belonged to the girls. However, she had never witnessed anyone recover so quickly. Tree house hidden away. A short man who looked like an Oompa Loompa stood in the center of a bedroom, surrounded by a faint glow from the hallway. Zabuza, damn it, how could a young girl beat you? The little fat man snarled. What the hell am I paying you for? The girl was a huntress with the support of her ninja abilities. However, that won't deter me from accomplishing my goal. Zabuza growled. A young ninja with his hair pulled up in a bun stood to the left of Zabuza's bed. He gave the little man a fierce look for the way he addressed his master. After we're done here, that midget will be chopped down by me. As he watched the midget turn and walk away, the boy thought. You will murder the bridge builder and his companions for your own sake, Zabuza. For if you let me down once more, it's going to be your last. The midget said this as he disappeared with the 2 thug-like samurai. The Konoha. Hiyashi, while I'm away from the village, I want you to keep an eye on everything. I don't have faith in my former teammates. They've become too comfortable with Danzo, and I worry that they might try to cause trouble while he's away. Sarutobi said, getting up and moving around his big oak desk. I understand Lord Hokage and I will do all I am able to. Hiyashi Hyuga bowed to his leader and said this. Shibi, Tsume, and Shikaku. I'm taking the 3 of you to see Ozpin. I'll see you at the north gates in an hour. As 3 of his Anbu materialized in front of him, Sarutobi spoke. Allow us to come along, Lord Third. An Anbu with long purple hair and a Neko mask said. The 3 Anbu disappeared in a whirl of leaves after their elderly leader simply nodded his head. In the hidden leaf, elsewhere. It appears the old fool is leaving for the Huntsman village. A man with bandages covering his face said. He hasn't mentioned this trip to either of us. He must be leaving right away, so something must be going on. A woman with gray hair said. It makes no difference. While he's not there, we'll complete the tasks at hand. The same bandage man said. Gates in the north. I appreciate your prompt arrival. We are traveling to see my old friend, and 3 Anbu will be following us. As he turned and started his lengthy journey, Sarutobi said. The land of waves. Just as Kakashi emerged from the restroom, Nanami crawled out of bed. We're going scouting after I take a shower. We need to know his response as soon as possible. Take out that little troll, perhaps. As she opened the bedroom door, Nanami said. There was Kakashi in the corridor. He resembled a deer caught in headlights. Before he could speak again, he looked at her for a few more seconds. You were injured. How are you already feeling, and do you want to keep looking for Zabuza? Uncertain whether to attempt to stop her, he inquired. She looked at him intently and intently. I have to find Zabuza and bring him back to the mist. You and your small group of kids won't get in my way. As she shoved past him and into the restroom, she informed him. Ruby's eyes were wide as she gazed at Nanami. This is a new side of her hero to her. She is resilient and doesn't let anything stop her. Sakura turned to face Cinder and Emerald. She didn't have to be rude to my sensei like that. The feeble Pinkett said. Nanami won't let anything or anyone stop her. Your sensei is attempting to obstruct her path, but she will ignore him in order to complete the task at hand. Cinder remarked while observing her closest friend disappear into the restroom. That's what he gets. Emerald turned back to her bed and lay down, saying this. As she takes a shower. We should get some rest. Because in an hour we will be leaving. There was Mercury in the doorway. Damn, that girl is like the Terminator. As he turned around and returned to his room with the small infants, he said. When he entered, he noticed Sasuke with his equipment standing nearby. Mercury looked at the duck ass and arched an eyebrow. So, what are you doing, little boy? As he withdrew his pack from Sasuke, he spoke. I wanted to see one of those legendary weapons they say you have. Sasuke glared at the huntsman with silver hair. Next time, inquire. You have no right to look through my belongings. As he shut his pack and turned to see Kakashi observing this unfold, Mercury said. You shouldn't be looking through someone else's belongings, Sasuke. It's not courteous, Kakashi said with a smile on his face. Pardon my pupil, he and the others have never met a huntsman like you and the others before. He informed the boy with silver hair. All Mercury did was wave him away. Don't be concerned about it. It makes sense. When I first started going on missions outside of my village a few years ago, I was interested in ninjas. However, as the team leader, Nana had somewhat snubbed my curiosity. Before something like this could ever happen, he lay down on his bed and finished. However, while Nana gets ready, I'm going to take a nap for the time being. Because we'll be leaving soon. Then he fell asleep. An hour later, Nana was reviewing the tools and materials her team had. Cinder and Ruby. Make sure to pack extra dust, she told her best friend and her student. Both girls nodded and grabbed some dust from Nana. All right, you four, it's time to move out. Cinder, go north. Mercury, you head south. Emerald, you will be heading east. I'll travel south with Ruby and cover the majority of the forest. If you find anything, radio it in. If attacked, take care of the thugs and make sure they can't report you. Tell me if you locate the little troll's base. Additionally, check out any warehouses you come across. There are rumors that Gato traffics people. Tell me if you find any prisoners. Together, we will arrive and liberate them. Nanami spoke as she assumed a completely different aura. No one was left to question her about anything. As Tazuna and his daughter Tsunami listened to the girl's plan, Kakashi and his students were stunned. The group then broke up and left the house.